live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Tuesday, I think. Yes, Tuesday, June 21st. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Odds Shopper. 13-game MLB slate in front of us today. Much bigger than the 8-gamer that we had yesterday, which I was very happy with. I wish I could go back and do that one again, other than I'd like a little bit less Darvish and more of the other guys, but doesn't really matter. Before we do anything, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how are you? How's your Tuesday?
Doing pretty well. Tuesday's good. 13-game slate, pretty fun to talk about. Less pitching today somehow, I think, than we had yesterday, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, we were loaded at the top. Well, honestly, there's probably like 4 or 5 really or like solid options today, but they're just not sort of cut from the same mold. Like, I have Manaea at 19 fantasy points. That's like the McClanahan of yesterday, I guess. And then there's nothing really above that, but we got a lot to talk about. And we have an hour and 15 minutes or so to do it. How was your MLB slate last night? I didn't get a chance to talk to you this morning. Well, I didn't get a chance to talk to you on show this morning.
Yeah, it was good. Had, I think, 2 teams in the top 100 in the big DraftKings tournament, 3 on FanDuel. So lost a little bit in tournaments, but made more in cash than I lost in tournaments. So that worked out.
Breaking news per The Athletic. Don't think I saw this one coming. John Wall exercised his option for this season.
Yeah. Can't imagine why he decided he wanted $47 million, but good for him.
Color me shocked. Didn't think he would want to, figured he'd want to just go to free agency and see what was up. But yeah, he's going to lock in one of the highest salaries in basketball this year after his team didn't want him to play last season. He'll be decent this year.
Can he get moved?
Yeah, he's gonna get bought out, is my opinion. I can't imagine, like, there's just not, when you make that much, it's really hard to like move that deal. There's no one really set to absorb 47.
Yeah, well, that was, I guess, kind of my question. Do they just let him sit on the bench for another year, or do they let him go?
No, they'll be like, we'll give you 35 or something, and he'll get bought out. And if there's offset language or something, he'll go sign with the Clippers, I don't know, some mild contender, if I had to guess.
Bring him back to Washington.
You could have him.
I mean, I'd be happy with it.
Well, I mean, as of right now, I think the starting point guard's like Ish Smith or Raul Neto or something, so he might as well. You can't get any worse than that.
Bradley
gonna break this one.
Moving Kispert to the 2.
Oh my god, it'd be hilarious. I think Markieff Morris is a free agent. They really, what's Gortat doing? You get the whole fucking band back together.
We can run him right back into the ground.
Yeah. I think he's just properly done. But bring Keefe back. Who the hell else? What's Otto Porter going to be up to? Is he free? I think he might be a free agent. He can bring the whole crew.
He'd start on the Wizards.
He might have to be the 6th man. He would probably start.
Yeah.
I don't think he can start.
Oh wait, I forgot about Kuzma. I guess he'd be the 6th man.
Yeah, you got Zinger now. That's a decent replacement.
Oh yeah, I definitely forgot about him.
That's a bad sign for the Washington Wizards.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just haven't thought about Wizards basketball in so long now.
It is kind of funny though that you were just like it hit you like, oh, there's an actual like decent NBA player still on the team that isn't Bradley Beal.
Yeah, I was just like blanking. I'm like Kispert, Avdia, Rui, like Porter's playing over all of them.
Yeah. Bryant.
Yeah, right.
Guys, 177 viewers in here. I know this is going to climb, but 24 likes. Be embarrassed of yourselves. Just be completely embarrassed of yourselves. Hit the like button so that you don't have to feel that embarrassment as Adam and I get ourselves started with the local battle. What is this one called? Orioles Nats. Does it have a
Battle
name?
of the Beltways.
There you go. Battle of the Beltways. Orioles 5-run implied total. Nats 4.5. True gem of a pitching matchup here. Jordan Lyles and Eric Fede. Neither guy pulling any ownership. You getting either one of these guys here? Because doesn't look very good.
Yeah, doesn't seem great. I don't think this is another slate where I don't think you really have to go cheap on pitching if you don't want to either. I mean, I did a bit yesterday with Winkowski, but like it certainly wasn't a necessity, and it's the same thing here. There's still a lot of hitter value. Anytime you have a 13-game slate, there's going to be plenty of hitter value, but especially when like DraftKings in particular decides that everybody in the top 20 of the MLB top prospect list should be $2,400 or less when they debut, it creates quite a bit of value. So neither of these guys are any good, and neither one is going to be any sort of roster construction necessity.
I should wait because it's the next game, but I'll forget, and I don't want to forget. Did you see all of the things that Oneil Cruz did yesterday in the game?
96.7 mile per hour throw to first base, and then like 112 and change mile per hour batted ball. Yeah.
Yeah. So he had the fastest sprint speed of any Pirate this year, the fastest exit velocity of any Pirate this year, and the fastest throw of any infielder for a Pirate this year. Just out of curiosity, all of them. He basically did. He's like the fastest guy, the hardest thrower, like the hardest hitter, everything across the board for the Pirates.
The fact he's a 6'7" shortstop is mind blowing.
Yeah, you don't normally see that. I don't get the sense that he's going to have a long career at short, but
right.
Who the hell knows? Has he been hurt? Like, is this just playing like service time manipulation?
He came up last year, so I don't know what it was, but no, he hasn't been hurt. It's been kind of like he played 55 games at AAA. It's been kind of like a running meme on like Twitter that he's just bored in AAA. Like, I think he hit a home run one day, and like his body language was kind of just like, "Why am I still here?"
As it should be. He's like, what are we waiting for here?
Yeah, no idea.
I mean, was he hitting well in AAA? No.
190 ISO, 338 WOBA, 103 WRC plus. I mean, not like lighting the world on fire, but
right. I mean, that was only 29 at bats. Last year in AA, 292, 346, 536. Just assume he's good.
Right. Yeah, 136 WRC plus, 244 ISO at AA last year at 22 years old.
80-80 raw power on Fangraphs.
Yeah. 60-45 speed, 40-70 game power.
Where's he end up then? What, like right field with that hose?
Probably.
Too big for center?
Well, I was going to say, like, with his speed, center.
Center till he can't handle it anymore?
Right, yeah, center until he bulks up, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, Judge is still playing center.
It's fair.
Or just now playing center.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the bats. Yeah, I had to talk about it. Like, I can't get this guy out of my... Like, I played a ton of them yesterday. I watched the Pirates game with my dad last night, so I was just like, hey, by the way, cheering aggressively for this dude. He sets all of those individual like rate records for this season. And then we go to lunch today. MLB TV is on like a random ass cheesesteak place in Allentown, and they do 15 minutes on him breaking down all these stats again. I can't get him out of my life.
Yeah, and I kind of had alluded to it a minute ago, but he's obviously drawing like the most attention right now, but there's a ton of top prospects up now. You know, obviously Rutschman's been up, but Riley Green was just called up for the Tigers. CJ Abrams is up for the Padres because of Machado's injury. Alex Kirilloff is back up for the Twins. There's a lot of really good young top hitting talent in the majors right now, and from a DFS standpoint, they're cheap.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into the hitting talent for the Orioles and the Nats. I guess we'll start with the Nats. Actually, they are 5th in ownership, 5th in our stack score. Ranked one spot ahead of the Orioles in terms of top stacks. I'm a little bit, I don't know. I'm a little bit more interested, I guess, in the Nats than I am the Orioles. Maybe more than a little bit. Do you have a lean between these two teams today?
I think they're pretty close for me. I do like that the Orioles are getting a little bit less ownership, although that's mostly just the difference of Juan Soto being 16% owned and nobody on Baltimore being as popular. But really, I just like both offenses. Neither pitcher is very good. Neither team is pulling a ton of ownership. Washington right now at 4% aggregate ownership, Baltimore at 4.5%. And the pricing's not bad either. When you look at Washington, you know, Juan Soto is 5,200. That's fine. But like Josh Bell's really cheap. Cruz is cheap. You have Luis Garcia hitting 5th. He's inexpensive. Gilbert Ruiz is cheap. And then on the Baltimore side, they have their normal 1 through 6 with Mullins, Mancini, Santander, Hayes, Mountcastle, Rutschman. All of those guys are good, and none of those guys are expensive. Rougned Odor, Tyler Nevin both have at least some power and pretty inexpensive price tags. Jorge Mateo is really fast. For two middle-of-the-road offenses, I really like both of them in DFS.
They're very interesting. And yeah, like you said, the ownership's not really there. It's definitely not there for the Orioles. It's there a little bit more for the Nats, but not in any sort of like problematic way. And certainly targeting Jordan Lyles or Eric Fede doesn't make me feel bad about getting to either offense.
No, not at all. I mean, looking at Lyles this year, 195 expected ISO to righties, 234 to lefties. For Eric Fetty, 161 to lefties, 135 to righties. So, I mean, he's done a better job of limiting power, but it's not like he strikes guys out. And at least that 1 through 6 for Baltimore, like they're all legitimate hitters. It's not like you're talking about, even a team like Kansas City, for example, that I actually get to a pretty decent amount. It's always like, oh yeah, they're fine, but they have speed and whatever. Like Baltimore, these guys are just they have power 1 through 6.
Do you honestly have a preference between the two? And I'm guessing like neither one of these teams are actually going to be major priorities for you.
I mean, at their current ownership, I do really like them and the pricing. The pricing I think is important because there's some other teams in this ownership range that I really like that we'll get to, but they're typically more expensive. Like Houston is certainly a lot more expensive. Minnesota, for the most part, well, they're more popular and more expensive. St. Louis is in that range, but they're much more expensive, particularly at the top of the order. So, I haven't built lineups yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if I do end up getting quite a bit of these guys.
Okay. Anything else that we should mention here for Orioles and Nats?
I don't think so. It's pretty much just the bats for me.
Yeah. And I don't really have any of the bats individually standing out. Like I like Juan Soto the most from the Nats. I like Mullins most for the Orioles, but there's nothing really, really crazy when everybody's just like 6% owned.
Yeah, I mean Soto obviously is great.
Yeah.
Josh Bell still a 208 expected ISO since the start of last year against right-handed pitching. This year he's at 197. So I mean, and he's cheap. So those two guys I think really stand out the most to me.
Absolutely. Pirates and Cubs, 5-run implied total for the Pirates, 4 for the Cubs. It's I assume it's Roansy, but it's probably not. But whatever.
That's how I pronounce it. I'm not positive.
Okay. Contreras going for the Pirates. Matt Swarmer going for the Cubs. No ownership going to Swarmer, but Contreras at 12% on DK, 7,400, 4% owned actually on FanDuel. I basically had him, I had Contreras coming out of my sim, basically spot on that ownership number. Cubs lineup doesn't look all that great to me today. So I'm happy to pay the 7,400 for Contreras. Where do you land on him?
His ownership's been coming down all day, which is interesting to me, and it obviously makes me like him a little bit more. This morning he was at 21%, then we updated and it fell to 18. Now he's down to about 12. He's certainly got the best strikeout stuff of anybody in the mid-range here. This is a top pitching prospect. It's not a bad matchup against the Cubs. At this ownership, I'm really interested in getting there at 7,400. So far, a 25.2% strikeout percentage for him. This morning, I thought it was a little bit more interesting from like just a talking point where you had Contreras getting 21% and then all the other guys in that price range getting like 2 to 4%, where certainly they weren't as good as Contreras, but you were getting a massive ownership discount. Now that we have him down 12 to 13%, I'm much more likely to just be jamming him into a lot of lineups.
Okay. I'm guessing you have no interest in an $8,300 Swarmer.
No, I don't.
Okay, perfect. Then let's talk.
Somebody mentioned Soto seems off this year. Is he hurt? He has said that he's just kind of having some issues at the plate, but also still 185 plate appearances against right-handed pitching this year. 392 WOBA, 268 ISO, 433 expected WOBA, 334 expected ISO, 14% strikeout percentage. There's not really a reason to be worried about Juan Soto.
There we go. Pirates bats are the value play du jour today. They are third in ownership, number one in our top stack tool because they have a 20% chance of being the top value. Feels high. Also makes 100% sense. Brian Hayes at 3,600, Brian Reynolds at 3,800. Everybody else is 2,600 or below. And for reasons that make no sense to me, Oneil Cruz, once again, flat minimum shortstop and outfield eligibility. How do you want to manage the ownership that is going to the Pittsburgh Pirates today?
So on the one hand, like I never want to roster a team like the Pirates when they're really popular, but on the other hand, they clearly are very good values. And they are starting to just get a little bit better offensively. Bringing up Oneil Cruz certainly makes them better. Jack Sawinski is not a bad hitter. Brian Reynolds we know is good. Brian Hayes is fine. Vogelbach's got power. So they are getting a little bit deeper lineup here. I think it's more likely that I sort of use them to mix in value to lineups where I already have other contrarian pieces, more so than jamming in a bunch of 5-man Pirate stacks, just because the ownership is pretty much there on the hitters that I want to get to. But once again, if you're not playing Oneil Cruz in cash, you should probably quit cash.
Yeah.
Jack Sawinski at 2,100, certainly cash viable as well. It overall looks like a good spot for the Pirates.
So my dad's a Yankees fan. If he's watching baseball, it's probably a Yankees game. He doesn't watch like random games or know really anything about like most of the roster. He got a real good chuckle out of what Dan Vogelbach looks like when he stepped to the plate yesterday. He's like, "Ooh, he's a big boy."
Yeah, he looks like a softball player.
Yeah, I was dying. I was like, "Yeah, he's pretty husky, pops."
Yep.
Um,
Him and Rowdy Tellez just kind of like trading off at first base for the Brewers is entertaining.
yeah, I loved being like, "Yeah, Dad, he's just fat."
Yep.
I think there's no other way around it. Anything on the Cubs side of this one, because they aren't all that far behind the Pirates from a value perspective, not getting any ownership at all, but I don't really think they should either.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not the same sort of matchup. Swarmer's a 28 going on 29-year-old guy that isn't supposed to be any good. Roansy Contreras, one of the top pitching prospects in baseball. Could the Cubs put up a good game against him? Obviously, but on a slate of this size, I have difficulty getting there, especially with Contreras' projected ownership coming down as well. There's nothing really that stands out to me from the Cubs. If you wanted to go to the top of the order and use Contreras at catcher or Ian Happ at a cheap price tag, that's obviously fine. But there's just a lot of other spots that I would rather get to than targeting Contreras here.
Alrighty. Anything else that we should touch on here, Pirates or Cubs?
Nope.
Craziness. All right, let's go to Rays and Yankees. 3.1 run implied total for the Rays, 4 for the Yankees. Jalen Beeks is going to be the starter for the Rays. That should not be all that relevant. Nestor Cortez going for the Yanks, much more relevant. 38% owned, the second highest owned pitcher on the slate. I think that he looks good. I think that he is over-owned. I see a couple other guys at the top where I could very easily offload some of this ownership, but like clearly very, very good. 10-4 though, big time price tag. What do you want to do with Cortez?
Yeah, pretty expensive price tag, but I do think that there's a couple of things to like here. For one, the game's in Tampa Bay. For two, he has the third highest strikeout percentage on the slate at 27.8%. But you're also getting a watered down Tampa Bay lineup. They've been without Wander Franco for a while, but now also no Manny Margot, no Kevin Kiermaier. I had mentioned yesterday that their lineup was starting to look kind of ugly, and then now today it's even worse. So I do think that's appealing for Cortez. And then the other thing is that you have sort of a similar situation to what you had yesterday. When you look at the other pay up options, Dylan Cease has a very difficult matchup with Toronto. Kevin Gossman has a difficult matchup with the White Sox. Spencer Strider's less expensive, but a difficult matchup with San Francisco. So I do think that Cortez, I understand the ownership. If you want to argue it's a little bit too high, that's certainly reasonable in the sense that, maybe I just get more Roansy Contreras. Maybe I just get to a little bit more of Cease and Gossman and just kind of take my chances in their matchups. But from a projection standpoint, I think Cortez does stand out here.
Yeah, I certainly like him quite a bit. I mean, I have him as the second best projected pitcher, but you need every bit of that projection at that price tag. We'll talk about a couple other guys that I don't think should be nearly as discounted from an ownership perspective in relationship to Cortez. Beeks isn't going deep into this game. I don't think that anybody is going to be going deep for the Rays, so I don't think we're talking about any pitching here.
No, I don't think you need to go to Beeks or Fleming or whoever is going to be pitching after him.
Any particularly interesting takes for bats, either on the Rays side or the Yankees side? I don't get the sense we want Rays unless you're leveraging the Cortez ownership. Yankees bats are just sort of, if you want power, go for it.
Yeah, not interested in the Rays here, unless, like you said, if you're trying to just get hitters against Cortez's ownership, that's fine, but I don't think I'll be there. The Yankees are interesting. Again, it's always tough for me to say exactly how much of the Yankees I'll get to because they are pretty expensive. They don't have a great chance of being the top stack here against a bullpen game in Tropicana Field, but they're also not getting much ownership, so they are always appealing in tournaments just because there is so much power in this lineup, and they're not getting really any ownership.
I wish I had more to say here, but I can't really talk about the Rays. They have the lowest implied total on the slate. And while I'm happy to get some of the Yankees bats, no Judge in the lineup for today. And if I one off a couple of these guys, I think that's fine, but they're 20th in ownership and 16th in our stack score. So it's just not all that interesting to me.
Yep.
All right. Red Sox and Tigers, 5.5 run implied total for the Red Sox, 4 for the Tigers. We got Dick Mountain on the hill for Boston, Rich Hill. And then we've got Bo Brisky. Doesn't really matter. He's not owned, and we're not rostering him against Boston. So, Adam, I'm going to throw to you and step away for 20 seconds. Talk to me and the public about Rich Hill.
So he's one that I'd mentioned this morning when Contreras was getting 21% ownership that I thought was sort of interesting as a tournament pivot. I still do, but not to the same extent now that Contreras's projected ownership has come down. But it's still a very good matchup for Hill going up against one of the worst offenses in baseball in the Tigers. He has a 19.2% strikeout percentage. You're likely getting somewhere around 80 pitches, give or take, from Hill. So in individual tournament lineups, I think he makes some sense just because he is cheap. He does have a good matchup, but it's certainly not anybody that I'm looking to prioritize, given that he only has about a 6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on this slate, an 8% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. Contreras' ceiling is certainly higher given the strikeout upside that he has. And then also, I just don't really think you're going to end up needing to get to this price range all that much. I think that it would be a more appealing spot if this were a slate where, like, I don't know, there were just really expensive stacks, like really tight pricing on hitters. But as is, it's basically purely an ownership play in lineups where you need to save some ownership.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I have no idea anything that you just said. When I originally paired my AirPods to the new laptop, I accidentally clicked Roku streaming stick before I clicked on the AirPods, which I figured was going to be a problem. Turns out, switch the TV input downstairs from their cable to the Roku, and my dad has no idea how to change that back, so I had to run down quick and change the input on the TV. I actually ran. I'm out of breath.
I saw you. I could see you running back like through the door.
Yeah, I was trying to scamper as fast as I possibly could. When I saw how little Rich Hill ownership was there and like how he didn't cross 10% for me, I was like, oh shit, he might not be able to stretch this one.
Yeah, I started talking a little bit slowly towards the end, and then I saw you running. So I was like, all right, good.
Yeah, I tried to hustle as fast as I could. I had to find the remote for the TV. It was disaster. I don't think that we need to talk about the dude that's pitching for the Tigers against the Red Sox. So let's talk about the Red Sox, who are second in top stack percentage, second in ownership. But because of their value, which we might need to give a little tweaksy to the calculation here, they are 8th in stack score. I like Boston clearly, and I don't have any issue targeting the guy pitching for Detroit. What do you want to do here for Boston, considering they're second in ownership?
Yeah, I mean, I still think that they look good because this is one of the teams you look at the actual ownership for the players on like an individual basis instead of a team basis. Rafael Devers is driving up the overall team ownership at 19%. Story and Bogarts are both pulling 13%. I think that makes a lot of sense. Duran's at 10%. He's a ridiculously good value. JD Martinez, 8%. That's, livable. Vasquez is 6%. Verdugo, Cordero, Bradley, all 5% or less. So you can overall get a Boston stack that doesn't have a ton of ownership. Even if you include Devers, Story, and Bogarts. But then if you start to just say like, oh, well, what if I play, I don't know, Jose Ramirez instead of Rafael Devers or something like that. You're getting, you can be different that way as well. It's certainly a good matchup here against Brisky. I think that Boston is a pretty appealing team to get to just because you can spread the ownership out a little bit within your stacks. And also they are a really nice combination of some of the best options at their respective positions, but also really good value when you talk about guys like Jarren Duran in particular.
Yeah, I know that I'm just going to still get to these guys. I'd like to get to a little bit less Devers, but even when I was trying to adjust pretty aggressively yesterday for leverage and setting every other rule, like I still couldn't get rid of him. He was just like that good of a play at third base. So I ended up very high on Devers, which ultimately didn't work out as well as I wanted to, but I assume that will on most days. I will be getting to the Red Sox here. I don't think I'm going to be able to avoid it. They did come in as my number one top stack. So, if it's more Duran at 9% ownership, I'm cool with it. 8% own JD, I'm cool with it. Really, the only problematic ownership is Devers, and problematic is not really the correct word for it either. Tigers bats, they are the alternative to the Pirates value bats, second in top value, but 12th in ownership. In the grand scheme of things, should you just avoid the Pirates for the Tigers?
I think that's fine. I prefer the Pirates for sure, but you are just talking about a massive ownership difference where you still have really cheap pricing on the Tigers. Robbie Grossman at 2,200, Jonathan Scope at 2,800, Riley Green at 2K flat, Eric Haas at 3,200, Torkelson at 2K flat.
Keep going.
What?
Who's next?
The corpse of Javi Baez.
Oh, come on, man. The next guy on the list was Candelario. You had your shot.
Yeah. I hadn't mentioned Baez or Cabrera though, but the point being, I certainly would prefer to be taking cheap hitters against whatever the guy's name is on the Cubs, as opposed to against Rich Hill. But you are getting a pretty big ownership discount here if you were looking to build a team where you're stacking a really cheap value offense. You're paying up for Cortez and Strider, or Cortez and Minaya, or whatever you want to do up there, and then getting some good one-offs around them. I do think the Tigers make some sense from that standpoint. And also, Rich Hill has struggled with power this year. 235 expected ISO to righties, 184 to lefties. There's at least a path for these cheap Tigers to do well.
There is. I don't have anything to specifically say about the Tigers. Baez is the guy that popped up the most for me at 3,800, but clearly they're easy to get to. I just don't know how much you're going to need them, especially on a 13-game slate. It's a little bit easier. We have a lot more pay down options from a pitching perspective today too, to free up a little bit of extra money. So I think we can go ahead and lop those guys out of there and move it along to schedule for the rest of the day. And surprise, surprise, this one's easy. Live Before Lock is next, coming up at 6 p.m. So stay on this stream. You don't have to go anywhere at all. You just stay here and the show will just continue and you'll get different hosts other than me and Adam. It's really a good gig. You guys don't have to do anything. You show up at 4:45 and we entertain you until 7 o'clock at night. It's as good as it gets. Eric and Greg will be on after us. Free content for today. It's not just baseball today. MLB top stacks are free. We are going to touch on the top stack data across the board for every one of these teams. You guys can see it straight at stokastic.com. Go there, find the link in the chat if you need to, or just browse directly to it. Great info. We give you top stack percentages, top value, our ownership, and our calculated stack score. Let you know what is the best thing you can do from a stacking perspective. So that is free. Also, PGA ownership projections are free. That will be for the Travelers. Any thoughts on the Travelers, Adam? I know you have a lot of interesting golf takes as of late.
Yeah. Props to Brooks Koepka. Congratulations. Big news today that he's leaving. But yeah, no, all I know about the Travelers is that I have a pending entry into the second round of the DraftKings Invitational that I really need to remember to enter before 6 a.m. on Thursday.
There you go. Do you see what the name of the porn bot is? That's the best one we've ever had.
I went in there ready to read it out loud. No, I was just like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, I was about to. If it was just stop jerking, fine girl, I'd keep going. But
yeah,
that's a lot. That's a good porn bot. So thank you, porn bot, for that one. And thank you to our friends at Stokastic, which is us, for the free content today. Ready to move on?
I think we should talk a little bit more about everyone
for the porn bot
to live, because Eric is really excited about that topic, I think.
I mean, you and I are on the exact same page, so I'm really going to turn the screws to Eric on this one. But take the bag, everybody. Secure the money. I don't care about any of it. Legacy is phony. No one cares. No one cares about the legacy of an accountant. So why do we care about it for sports players?
I do get it, though, as a golf fan. Like, this sucks. Like, if I were a golf fan that cared about the PGA Tour, it would suck.
Well, as someone that's a soccer fan, I had no problem with the thoughts of the Super League because I understand what an inevitability is.
Yeah.
Like, people are just going to go to where the money is no matter what, whether I like it or not. So I can't care at all. And I know that it's like mildly come out as of late, but let's not forget that the PGA Tour is in bed with people that have no problem being in bed with Saudi Arabia. So
yeah. Sean Dre said, Adam, please stick to basketball. I don't know if this is a anti-baseball take or an anti-golfers getting the bag take, but either way, I'm right about it all.
My coworkers suck. Could have told you that one, Eric. We've known this for ages. Let's keep it on. Let's stick to baseball, I guess. We'll go to the reigning, defending, undisputed champions of the baseball world, the Atlanta Braves. 5.1 run implied total for Atlanta, 4 for the Giants. Spencer Strider, everybody's favorite on the hill for Atlanta. Anthony Desclafani back for the Giants after a boo-boo ankle. Strider, 26% owned at 8,600. My question to you is this: is that too low for you today?
For Strider?
Yes.
Yes. So the interesting thing with Strider is it's certainly a price bump from what we've seen from him previously, but um, Eric just not happy in
I
chat.
love it.
Um, it's a price bump from what we've seen previously on Strider, but the thing you need to keep in mind is that just because it's a price bump doesn't mean that you're chasing points or that he's overpriced or anything like that. He was just wildly underpriced before. The guy's got the highest strikeout percentage on the slate, north of 38%. Yes, he walks too many guys, but now you're getting him at a price point where at worst he's correctly priced. There's probably still a little bit of wiggle room before he is actually correctly priced. Um, so you're just still getting somebody that, for all intents and purposes, it's always difficult to talk about floor in baseball. But when somebody has the strikeout potential that Spencer Strider does, him being $86 or $8,700, there's still a pretty decent margin for error for him where he can give up a few runs. And as long as he does what he's capable of doing strikeout wise, he's not going to kill you score wise. And then if he is able to limit the runs, he's going to put up a score that you need to have again. So it's not a good matchup against the Giants, but there is still just massive upside at this price tag. And he's actually not getting that much ownership. 30% on DraftKings, certainly a lot, but it's not like you're talking about at least a projection, where I'm looking to like run the other direction.
He looks so good today. I have no problem getting to him. 31% strikeout rate in Steamer. The only real problem here is that the Giants offense is solid at the very least and not particularly strikeout heavy. A sea of lefties, but I expect Spencer Strider to be one of my most owned pitchers, probably second most owned if I had to guess. Could pass Manaea, but we'll get there. But he is currently third in our ownership projections, and I think that makes a ton of sense. So I don't have anything else to say for Strider. Desclafani, I don't think it's possible to roster him today.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, there's enough other pitchers on the slate. You have him in his first game back. I don't see any reason to get there.
Braves bats, 11th in aggregate ownership, 17th in stack score, 6th, though, in top stack probability. Going up against Desclafani, still working his way back from that injured ankle. Should we be more interested in Atlanta than the ownership shows? You got to pay for it.
I think so, just because there is so much upside here. Desclafani is a perfectly solid pitcher, but there's always a little bit of added volatility, added question marks too when you talk about somebody coming back from a prolonged absence. He hasn't pitched since April. You could certainly just get a rusty Anthony Desclafani here against a team that has the highest ISO on their active roster in Major League Baseball. And then on top of that, Atlanta's just not getting much ownership. So even though I do respect Desclafani, he's somebody that when he's healthy, I typically roster quite a bit. I like getting to the Braves here. Like, they're a team where, we kind of talked about the Yankees being, the really high upside team that's not getting much ownership. But teams like Atlanta, I think, are going to make it more difficult for me to get to the Braves just because they're not getting much ownership either. And they are, I think, in a better spot and, have a very strong lineup as well.
Yeah, just given where that ownership is, 5.7% chance of top stack, 3.7% ownership. I think they're a very good team to like pay up to be mildly contrarian for. So this works for me. I'm happy. I'm always happy to get to my Atlanta Braves. What I'm not going to be doing today, though, is getting to the San Francisco Giants. Will you?
I don't really think so. The matchup is certainly very difficult against Strider. There's a lot of offenses that aren't pulling much ownership that I would much rather get to. I don't see a whole lot of reason to be getting to the Giants.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on in this one?
Nope. I'm kind of just thinking more about how far I can push Eric here without saying something that gets me in trouble.
Yeah, I think we're at the point now where it can't be on a show. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. To push those buttons, they got to go to a DM. And if you do DM Eric, by the way, please add me to that DM. I like entertainment as well. Twins and Guardians. It's incredible how much less than 100 million or 10 million I would play and live for. Like, way less. way less. Twins and Guardians. 5.2 run implied total for the Twins. 4.3 for the Guardians. Joe Ryan, Aaron Savale. No ownership coming in to either side of this. I've got a question for you, though. Do you have any interest in Joe Ryan against Cleveland?
A little bit at the ownership, but again, it's sort of just he's the $8,800 version of
Barrios.
Well, no, I was going to say of Rich Hill on this slate, where like Hill's kind of just that low owned, low priority pivot to Contreras. Ryan at 8,800, he's kind of the pivot to Strider. Like you're getting 30% ownership to Strider. You're only getting 2 to 3% to Joe Ryan. It's not a good matchup. I would certainly much, much, much rather have Spencer Strider, given the fact that Strider has a 38% strikeout percentage and Joe Ryan's at 23%. But he's still a good enough pitcher. And you're, if somebody were to give you 10-1 odds and you get Joe Ryan's score and, the other person gets Strider, you're taking Joe Ryan every time. So he's kind of that guy where not any sort of a priority, but within any given lineup, if you need to save some ownership in that price range, he makes some sense.
Yeah, I think he's sort of today's Barrios, where he's just like sandwiched in between guys that are better options, but at 2% ownership, it becomes more interesting. He showed up in my sim at 10%, which may even be a little high, but like if you had him in that 8 to 10 range, that's just going to look good at 2%. The problem is he's probably like the 9th best pitcher on the slate, and I don't know how much it matters after that.
Right.
No Savale, I'm sure.
Yeah, I have no interest in Savale.
You know what the best part of this is? If we can keep this up for 30 more minutes, it's really going to ruin everything for Greg on Live Before Lock too.
Yeah, Eric's going to be like all out of sorts coming into that show.
Yeah. So we're going to get like, this is a win-win for us right now. Let's talk bats, and we'll start with the Twins side of this one. They are 6th in ownership, 5th in our top stack tool, but 12th in stack score. Byron Buxton pulling the large majority of this ownership, more than twice as owned as any other Twins batter. What do you want to do with Minnesota up against Savale?
I think Minnesota looks really good here. Their ownership projections coming in a little bit higher than their top stack score, but not by a wide margin. Byron Buxton, not surprising to probably anybody, is one of my, if I were to make home run picks, he would be very close to the top of the list. But also, it's worth noting that he's kind of the only guy on this team pulling ownership, and that's driving up that aggregate ownership projection. 15% projected ownership to Buxton, no issues with that. Next highest owned guys are Arias and Sanchez and Correa, all between 6 and 7%. Alex Kirilloff, 2,200, one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. Not going to get nearly as much ownership as somebody like Oneil Cruz, most likely. So I really like that as well. Savale has actually been better at striking out lefties this year, but he gives up power to everybody. Since the start of last season, a 186 expected ISO to lefties, 228 to righties. This year, 198 to lefties, 266 to righties. This is a team that I think the aggregate ownership is a little bit misleading. It's a very high upside spot against Savale. I like getting to the Twins quite a bit.
Yep, I have no issue getting to Minnesota here. Very easy to do so, and the Buxton ownership is really the only thing that's a problem. You said it best out of the gate.
Thank you to Eric for his very reasonable contribution that Kirilloff was raking in AAA.
Perfect. Where does he play AAA? Saudi Arabia? If only. Those guys are certainly going to make more money than minor league baseball players, that's for sure. Because they're like, here's $5 for McDonald's for the day. Sleep in your car. Guardians bats?
I'm more interested in them as one-offs. Joe Ryan has struggled with left-handed power a bit. Going back to last year, a 282 expected ISO to lefties. Not a huge sample size there, but when you have a team that most notably has Jose Ramirez, that's interesting. The ownership between Ramirez and Devers is interesting to me. Right now, it's not a big gap. Ramirez is at 14.5%. Devers was at like 18.5%. But it does set up as a very good spot for Jose Ramirez. You got a lineup bump for a cheap Steven Kwan. Josh Naylor's hitting cleanup. Don't mind any of those guys, but I think it's going to be kind of tough for me to get a lot of like 5-man Cleveland stacks.
I agree. Sign me up for some Jose Ramirez because he's the best hitter on the Guardians, but otherwise this isn't my spot, and Joe Ryan certainly isn't getting enough ownership to get any sort of value from a leverage perspective. All righty, moving it on. Rangers and Phillies. 4.1 run implied total for Texas, 3.9 for the Phils. Martin Perez and Kyle Gibson, matchup of two of the same guy from an ownership perspective. Perez 3% owned, Gibson 5% owned. Perez 9,600 on this slate. I don't totally know why. Why is he 9,600?
Because he's been good at preventing runs, I guess, but like that doesn't translate to DFS. He still has a 19.8% strikeout percentage this year. He's allowing virtually no home runs, 0.22 home runs per 9 innings. 3.63 xFIP. Like he's a solid enough pitcher. I'm not really actively looking to stack against him, but I certainly am not looking to pay $9,600 for Martin Perez in this spot either. And if I had to go to one side, I think I would actually prefer the Phillies just because they're another one of these offenses that has plenty of power in a less than ideal spot. But like I think I would still get to the Braves before I get to the Phillies.
Okay. Are you more interested in Gibson or Perez?
Gibson.
Or is the answer
Gibson.
just neither?
Gibson.
Because of the price tag?
Yeah, because of the price tag, he has better strikeout stuff. I mean, Gibson doesn't have great strikeout stuff, but he's at 21% for the season. The Rangers active roster has a 23% strikeout percentage. They're not a bad offense. I'm not going out of my way to like jam Kyle Gibson into lineups, but I do think he's going a little bit under-owned here. We have him projected for 5% ownership. I like him as, like, he's probably my favorite Spencer Strider pivot. I mentioned Joe Ryan. Gibson for a little bit less, I think actually looks a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm with you. He would be the guy that I'd be trying to get to if I didn't want to get to the ownership that's already on Contreras. Like, I think it's Gibson. I don't think that there's offense that I'm all that interested in. There's not enough ownership to either one of the pitchers. 19th in ownership for Texas, 25th for the Phillies. I just don't see teams that I want to stack here. 8-run implied total, just gross.
Yeah, not the best Phillies lineup here either, with no Harper. I mean, you have Schwarber, Hoskins, Castellanos, Real Muto 1 through 4, and then it kind of just falls off a cliff with Gregorius, Alec Baum, Matt Vierling, Camargo, Yair Munoz. So that's another reason that I think Philadelphia kind of just falls behind other high upside teams that I would want to stack.
Anything else, Rangers or Phillies?
Nope.
Excited to do my promo read now for Odds Shopper. It's so easy to talk about. It's insane because it's the best thing that we're going to talk about because it costs you absolutely nothing, not a cent. It is totally free. If you're sports betting, it is going to be a gigantic help. If you're just playing DFS, it's a great resource for you to take a look at player props and betting lines because all that information is very important for your DFS lineups. Doesn't cost you anything, so go sign up. If you're shopping around for lines, which you should be doing, because if you don't, you're only costing yourself money. Odds Shopper will help you do that better than any other tool out there. If you're interested in the player prop side of this one, even better. We show our projections, our expected ROI, our expected win percentage on every single player prop that you can get to, and you're only a click away from making that bet. And again, this costs you $0 right now, and tomorrow it also costs you $0. Just sign up. It's going to be a tool that you will want to use, and if you can't bet in your state yet, get in now, get familiar with what you're looking at, because it is an inevitability that you will be able to do so in the future. Whew. Let's go ahead and talk about the Astros and the Mets. Astros 4.7 run implied total, Mets 4.2. Jose Urquidy and Trevor Williams going in this one. Urquidy 5% owned at just 6,500. Trevor Williams unowned at 6,300. Are you going all the way down to Urquidy in what is a very tough matchup against the Mets?
No, I don't really see a lot of reason to get to the pitching here. Neither pitcher is very good at getting strikeouts. Williams has actually been a little bit better than normal this year at 21.7%. Urquidy's down at 17%, and that's including the ridiculous game against, I think it was Texas, where he just struck out like everybody that he faced. But both of these guys are in difficult matchups as well, both from a actual hitting standpoint, a production standpoint, but also from a strikeout standpoint. So I don't really see any reason I need to be getting to these arms.
I agree. Bats, on the other hand, probably the same situation. Very easy to pick off.
The bats are very interesting to me.
Very easy to pick them off on a small stack, minor stack basis. But we've got Houston 13th. We've got the Mets 15th. Are you trying to get more 5-man types out of these two teams?
Houston in particular, I think they're both similar in that they're very productive, good offenses that aren't getting much ownership. Houston, though, I think does have more power when you talk about Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker. Altuve obviously has power as well. I think that maybe they're a little bit more appealing, but they're both similar in that they fall into that range where you're talking about Atlanta, you're talking about the Yankees, you're talking about teams like that, the Phillies. I think Houston in particular is a little bit closer to the top end there with Atlanta, ahead of teams like the Yankees and Phillies for me.
Yeah, I just think they're going to end up being a little bit too far down the list for me to drive them forward a lot. I think I'm just more likely to be getting some more individual bats. Like $4,200 Lindor stands out a lot from what I'm looking at. $4,900 Pete Alonso. Obviously, like Alvarez and Tucker are sort of priced where they should be already. The Astros prices are high. The value, I think the Mets are a better value than what we're showing.
Yeah, I do think that's the case. I mean, Brandon Nimmo leading off at 3,700 looks good. Even Francisco Lindor is only 4,200. Mark Canha's hitting fifth at 3K flat. The bottom of the order isn't the most exciting, but everybody from 6 on down is sub 3K. So I do agree that they are cheap and not a bad spot from a value standpoint.
Yeah, like it's when the second most expensive guy is 4,200. I think they're probably a better value than they're getting credit for, because it's not like Urquidy's some guy that's just mowing people down either.
Yeah.
Like there's an opportunity to put some balls in play.
Yeah, there's not a single bat in the lineup on DraftKings that's 5K. And the other thing to keep in mind is, like, when you talk about value in baseball, I mean, for one, it's kind of just overstated anyway because of just the way scoring works. But even when you are kind of just talking about value teams and talking about the lineups you can build, a lot of times it's not like NBA where, in NBA, the difference between like a 3K player and a $4,200 player is actually massive.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, value there. In baseball, it's kind of just like, yeah, okay, they are cheap enough that they're still letting you get whatever within, at least within reason, whatever one-offs or pitching you want with it. There's not as big a difference in MLB just because of the way the scoring works. So like when you talk about Nimmo being 3,700 and Lindor being 4,200, obviously that's not the same as a 2K player, but it's not the same sort of like gap just because of the way scoring is in baseball.
It's a great point. Anything else, Astros or Mets?
Nope.
Brewers and Cardinals, 4.5 run implied total for the Brew Crew, 4.9 for the Cardinals. This one should be pretty easy. I don't think we're getting to any pitching here. Chichi Gonzalez going for the Brewers. He's just simply not that good. Jack Flaherty going for the Cardinals. He could be good, but he is also limited to 75 pitches tonight. Are you going to either Gonzalez or Flaherty?
No, for very different reasons. For Chichi Gonzalez, it is that he is awful.
Yeah.
Greg and I were talking this morning. Like, I don't understand how somebody like this keeps getting chances. I understand he's a former first-round pick, but he doesn't throw hard. He's never at any point in his career gotten strikeouts. I don't know what teams look at and say like, oh yeah, we can bring the best out in this guy. I get it when you bring up somebody that like throws hard or has good stuff and just has never been good.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that like you should be testing out, not Chichi Gonzalez. There has to be somebody at AA or AAA that like has a greater than 0% chance of sticking as a major league pitcher, which is what Chichi Gonzalez has. So he's awful. Jack Flaherty on the other side.
30, by the way.
Right, yeah, he's not young. Jack Flaherty on the other side, 75 pitch count is the issue. And the reason it's not that he can't give you a good game in 75 pitches. He can certainly give you an efficient 5 to 6 innings, strike out like 5 or 6 guys, gives you a good game. But even that sort of game, you're not looking at it and saying, oh man, I can't win without Jack Flaherty. You're just saying like, okay, cool, Jack Flaherty didn't kill me. There's a lot of games in his range of outcomes where it's just like, okay, Jack Flaherty is actively hurting me because he only threw 75 pitches. He scored like, 8 to 10 fantasy points. It's really difficult for me, even at low ownership, to want to roster a guy that just does not have that top end to his range of outcomes, because every pitcher, every player in DFS and MLB DFS has downside risk. No matter how good you think they are, they can give you a pretty poor performance. You really, I think, want that upper end outcome potential, especially on a slate of this size. It would be different if this were a 5-game slate and you're like, okay, well, Jack Flaherty's 75 pitches might still be the highest score on the slate. That's basically impossible to happen here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If this were even like yesterday's slate with 8 games, you can get to him a little bit more than you can on a 13 gamer. Today, I just think it's mostly impossible because, as you said, like he doesn't really have a right tail today. He's just right. You have to just lop that off. Can he strike out 10 in 4 innings or something? Yeah, sure. Great. But like we are talking about a very, very rare occurrence. So just pick a different spot. It's going to be a lot easier.
When you think about the pitching scores that you like actually have to win, if Jack Flaherty somehow gives you 22 to 25 DraftKings points in 75 pitches, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter. I mean,
yeah, 5, 6, 7 other guys are going to do it too.
Right. Like it's good. You would certainly be happy. But the only pitching scores that you really need are when guys go for like 30 plus. And
when you get the Cole last night.
Happens. You're right. Yeah. Cole last night, Burns last night. I have no idea how that happens in 75 pitches.
It doesn't. It's a good spot. Like there's some strikeouts in the Brewers lineup, but we've probably spent enough time on it already. Brewers are 20th in aggregate ownership. I've got a little bit more interest in them than that, but I also don't want to target Flaherty. What we do need to talk about, though, are the Cardinals bats, because targeting against Chichi Gonzalez is a damn good idea. Second in top stack odds, seventh in value. They are fourth in aggregate ownership and second in our stack score. I will happily get myself some St. Louis Cardinals today going up against Chichi Gonzalez.
Yeah, it really sucks that Paul Goldschmidt's not in the lineup for the Cardinals. That does take one of the best bats out, but it also makes this team even cheaper. So this is another team that's just really inexpensive. Juan Yepez, Brendan Donovan, Tommy Edman, Nolan Arenado, the only guys getting double-digit ownership here. But looking at their lineup, I mean, Edman is 4,800, Arenado is 4,800. Every other player on DraftKings is sub 4K. Gorman's at 3,900, Donovan's at 3,700. Every hitter 6 and below is 2,400 or less. Why am I going to the Pirates at the same ownership as the Cardinals?
No idea. I don't get it. They look way better.
Yeah.
Way better. They should beat the tar out of Chichi Gonzalez. It's going to be great. So sign me up for the Cardinals. Best Cardinals bat.
I mean, the answer was obviously going to be Goldschmidt, but
that's why I was able to ask the question.
Yeah, Arenado.
Okay.
Probably.
Anything else here, Brewers or Cards? Like, do you want to touch on the Brewers at all? I mean, I think they're a little bit more interesting than their ownership is currently showing, but
the case for the Brewers, I guess, would just be it's Flaherty's second start back. He didn't look great in his first start back.
Right.
But the issue is just there's so many offenses that are getting basically no ownership on this slate that are in better spots.
Yeah. Like 4.5 run implied total isn't all that bad for this slate. It's, mid-tier. It's better than the ownership that shows. There's certainly power in this lineup. Renfroe, Tellez, Yelich, Adames. Like, it's not a bad lineup. They're going to get slept on, like they should, because there's 26 teams on the slate. And even if you name your top 10, they're probably not on it. But if they're 11th, like, I think they're more interesting than their ownership. I just don't know how actionable that is.
Right. They're one of those teams where, like, if they're, what do we have them at? 1.5% aggregate ownership. If I get to like 3, 4, 5%, I'm not going to be shocked. But that's not also that's also not something that like anybody.
That's like your ninth team,
right? No, nobody needs me to sit here and be like, oh, I'm going to be so overweight because I'm going to be 2x the field on a 1% owned team. Like, who cares?
Right. That's where it gets tricky. Like, I would love it if I could just like press a button and be like, yeah, I'd like 5% of the Brewers tonight, given if they're 1.2% owned. I love that idea. That is not our main talking point because we're going to talk about 8 teams more than that.
Yeah.
So
someone in chat also asked for a cheap St. Louis bat. I mentioned Arenado, but Juan Yepez hitting 4th. Steamer projects a 217 ISO rest of season. He's only $3,100. Yeah. I think that's clearly a top value option.
There we go. To the White Sox we go. 4.3 run implied total for the White Sox, 4.7 for the Jays. At least the Jays got there a little bit more than they had been early in the game yesterday. You and I were talking about how we were pretty heavy on the Blue Jays. It wasn't looking good out of the gate. At least they salvaged a little bit. Dylan Cease going for the White Sox. Adam throwing random stuff on what I assume is the ground. Kevin Gausman going for...
That's my desk. I was just like messing around with a pen and dropped it.
Gotcha. Kevin Gausman going for Toronto. Dylan Cease, 14% owned, 9,800. Kevin Gausman, 10,200, 9% owned. Am I crazy to like Gausman significantly more than Cease today?
That's kind of a tough sell for me. I think they're pretty comparable.
I have Gausman by 1.8 points, and he's, a bit less owned.
Yeah, I mean, I have Cease ahead of him. He's got better strikeout stuff. It's similarly bad matchups.
I mean, I think Gausman's got the better matchup by quite a bit.
I don't think it's by quite a bit. It's probably better.
The bottom 4 guy. Do we know the White Sox lineup yet?
Anderson, Vaughn, Robert, Abreu, Pollock, Engels, Zavala, Harrison, Mendick. Yeah, I mean 6 through 9 is not good for White Sox, but it's not like it's great for the Blue Jays either.
It's
better.
85, 73, 98, 92 are your weighted runs created plus from Steamer for those 4. 94, 101, 111, 106 for the Jays.
Yeah,
not
but
that it
Cease
matters.
also
This isn't
has
like
much better has better strikeout stuff than Gossman.
certainly does. Certainly does. The
And
fact that
Gossman,
Gossman's 9% owned, that Cease is more owned, that Cortez is 36% owned. I feel like Gossman's getting slept on just a bit here.
yeah, well, what I was going to say was just that I think they're similar in that both guys are certainly risky here. Like in cash, I would assume I'm playing Cortez over both of them,
Yeah.
but they're getting like half the ownership of Cortez, or even less than half the ownership of Cortez. So from that standpoint, the range of outcomes, they're still very strong tournament plays. Cease has the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate at just shy of 33%. Gossman is at 26.1% for the season. He has struggled a bit recently, both in terms of his actual results and his strikeout numbers, which does concern me a little bit just because Gossman's been such an enigmatic guy throughout his career. The first thing I looked at was his split finger percentage in recent games. That's been in line with what he's done all season long. So there's some possibility probably that he's tipping pitches. I know I saw that suggested on Toronto Blue Jays Twitter at one point when he was getting lit up by the Orioles last start. But that's something to keep in mind. But at the same time, you're just talking about, it could vary. It's most likely a random sample of bad starts in a short time period. You still should be treating him like he is a 26% strikeout pitcher that's not getting a ton of ownership.
I had him come out of my sim like slightly north of 20%. I'm going to get to him today for sure. And I think that because of his current ownership, he might end up as my most exposed pitcher.
I think that it's more likely for me that he ends up being like Barrios, where I like the idea of him, but then I end up not getting that much.
Okay. That's Joe Ryan for me today.
I can see that.
Do you like Cease?
Basically the same thing as Gossman. Better strikeout stuff, worse matchup, like we were just saying. He struggled a bit recently too, but that's been more just results based, not strikeout based. He's still getting his strikeouts. So I do, but between the two, I lean towards Cease. I haven't projected a little bit higher. We haven't, the Stokastic site hasn't projected a little bit higher. 13.5% ownership with the third highest top two pitcher percentage on the slate. He's also a little bit less expensive than Gossman. So between the two, I think I get to Cease first. That's another reason why I said that I think there's a decent chance that for me, Gossman just ends up being that guy where I like the idea of him in tournaments, but there's a lot of guys that I like the idea of, and he's kind of behind some of them.
Very interesting game here. White Sox bats are unowned. Blue Jays bats are middle of the pack in ownership. I think the most likely scenario here is that I get to the Blue Jays again. They are third in our top stack metric. If they're going to be ninth in ownership, this feels like a pay up to be contrarian spot again. And with the power that's in the Toronto lineup, at least in certain places, if Dylan Cease happens to have one of his I'm walking guys days, this could get ugly for him in a real hurry.
Yep, I'm with you. Anytime Toronto's low owned, I don't mind getting there. I will say that I'm glad that their top stack percentage has dropped a bit as the day has gone on. When I was recording the tournament plays videos earlier, we actually had Toronto as the highest top stack percentage, and I'm sitting there just like, I can't say that I think they're the most likely team against Dylan Cease, to break the slate. But the general idea that they're not getting much ownership. This is just one of those like prototypical tournament spots where the median projection for both sides isn't very good because Dylan Cease has a really difficult matchup and the Blue Jays have a really difficult matchup. But when you actually play out this game a bunch of times, sure, there's going to be some where it's 3-2, 4-3, and nobody wins. But there's going to be a lot of times where Dylan Cease comes out there and goes 6 innings and dominates the Blue Jays. And there's going to be a lot of times where Dylan Cease goes out there, walks a bunch of dudes, gets lit up, and gets taken out in the third or fourth inning. There's enough of those mixed in to the potential outcomes here that it makes both sides appealing in tournaments. And I mentioned it this morning, I'll mention it again now. Somebody tagged me on Twitter last night with their lineup where they 5-man stacked the Yankees and played Shane McClanahan. So just to clarify, when I say I like Cease and I like the Blue Jays in tournaments, I do not mean in the same lineup.
Wait, what? Say that again?
Somebody tagged me on Twitter last night with a screenshot of their lineup. It said yuck and tagged me, and it was Shane McClanahan with a 5-man Yankee stack. So I'm not sure if they were blaming me for the fact that they chose to do that or what the deal was, but I just wanted to clarify because I thought it was obvious, but not talking the same lineup.
Did you respond to that tweet?
I think so. I don't think they answered me.
Okay. Oof. That's a tough sell. Can you imagine if it was shipped?
Well, and that was the other thing. I couldn't tell exactly what they were saying in the tweet because at least at the time of the tweet, it was min caching. I doubt that it held, but
Yeah.
so it was just confusing because like it said yuck, but then it was making money, and so I was like, I don't know if he like thinks this lineup should have done better. I don't know if he's upset that he stacked the Yankees against Shane McClanahan. I don't know what we're getting at here, but not what
That's
not what I was going for when I said I liked both sides of that game.
that's incredible. I got nothing else here. White Sox and Jays.
Me neither.
Guys, 725 people in here, 140 likes. Not going to cut it. We've had some fun in chat. We're poking Eric quite a bit for just anything that we can think of. That's been a good time. Chat seems to be into it. Reward us with the likes. Get them in now. If you really want to stick it to Eric, hit that like button now so that he gets no credit for it whatsoever when he comes up again at 6:00. That seems like the best thing that you guys could do. So help us out a little bit, hit that thumbs up, and sign up for a little bit of a package. We got a good deal going on here. MLBDD is the promo code. 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus. That is so hard for me to do still after doing it. What are you nodding for? Like you do reads. What are we talking about?
I have a tournament plays video. You should check it out every afternoon between like 1 and 3 Eastern, where I have to say that word like twice.
Oh, like twice. Forgot you do content. Sign up, guys. MLBDD. Seriously, though, 50% off a month is a really good deal. And it's not just for baseball. Just because we're on the baseball show doesn't mean that code just gives you baseball. It gives you access to everything. So if you want to get all of the best Eric Lindquist golf takes, you also get that behind the paywall. Always good to know that kind of stuff. Maybe we'll cover some live events too. Really, really get into the golf stuff. We've got, what else is going on? MMA every single week. Adam, I believe, is now into the finals of the MMA final or the
second round.
Second round. Got it. Didn't know how many more levels there were.
It's 3 rounds, but I tied for the last spot, 6-way tied for the final 4 spots in round 1. So then I had to play the tiebreaker last week, advanced in that. So then there's round 2, top 10 of 30 advanced to round 3, and round 3 is in Dallas at the Amanda Nunes fight.
There you go, guys. You should just want to sign up using that promo code MLBDD. We've got a ton of content for you. All righty then. And we're up to 194 likes, so I'm going to ask one quick time. Just get it up over 200, guys. If you haven't hit it yet, 6 shy of 200. And that will really stick it to Eric. 3 games to go. Angels and Royals up next. 5.2 run implied total for the Angels, 4.3 for the Royals. Reed Detmers and John Heasley. Detmers 4% owned, Heasley not owned. Should either of these guys be getting any real ownership?
I don't really think so. If you were going to go to one, I think you go to Detmers. He's certainly, I guess, someone where you can make the case that he's cheaper than he should be. He's a top pitching prospect, but he hasn't shown strikeout upside at the major league level yet. 17.7% strikeout percentage. Decent matchup against Kansas City, but I really just don't see the need to get to him with any sort of frequency here. Heasley is clearly one of the worst pitchers on the slate and has a much more difficult matchup against the Angels.
I don't have anything to say about these guys. I mean, Detmer came out of my sim at 6%. So if you like that against a 4% owned guy, go for it. But this is not for me. Angels offense, on the other hand, even with the ownership, is for me 2nd in aggregate ownership, 4th in top stack, 6th in value, 3rd in stack score. Most of the ownership is going to Trout and Ohtani, although Ward coming along for the ride. All 3 of those guys should be owned. Trout and Ohtani because they're exceptional. Ward because he's good. And for some strange reason, just 3,700 and leading off. So I like those guys. How do you want to manage the Angels here?
The Angels, to me, are kind of just like the good version of the Pirates on this slate.
Yeah.
I love the spot. I like the prices. I like the players, all of that. I'm going to certainly be happy if I find some way to play a bunch of Angels tonight, but I just also don't think it's particularly likely that that happens for me because the way that I think you kind of have to think about DFS in general, but MLB specifically because of how much variance there is, you kind of just have to accept that you're going to lose most slates and understand that over the course of a season, you're going to put yourself in the best positions to make money by avoiding the top 1 or 2 stacks that the field is going to for the most part. So guys like Mike Trout, Taylor Ward, Shohei Ohtani, Jared Walsh, they're going to be very they're very good plays. I would like to mix them into lineups where I have low owned stacks or low owned pitching or both. But typically, when that's the case, I'm just not going to end up being able to get to quite as much as the field. In cash, I fully expect to have a lot of this. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't built a cash lineup yet, but wouldn't be surprised if I basically have like a Angels Pirates double stack in cash,
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah, I think
But
Ward probably has to be there.
yeah. I mean, Ward, Trout, Otani, Walsh, like they're all four of them are some of the top plays on the slate. Red
Yeah.
Hefo at 2,200 is a ridiculously good value as well. Assuming actually we have the lineup. Yeah, he's batting fifth, like great value there. So it's a top offense in terms of projection and points per dollar and all of that. It's just that I think you're probably going to see a little bit more ownership going there than you would really like on a 13 game slate.
Before we get to the bats here, any more on the bats here, I do want to hit on the super chat we got from Green Gang. So thank you for that super chat. He said, best stud pitcher tonight, best team stack.
Best stud pitcher.
I mean, it's got to be Cortez, right?
Well, yeah,
but
I don't know what
that's not the
calling.
way that's not the way we probably want to answer that question either.
Well, I was gonna say I don't really know what we're calling stud pitching. As far as like the pay up guys, it's Cortez, I think. But like Sean Manaea for $1,400 less is, I assume, going to be my highest owned pitcher and also
Yeah.
be the highest owned pitcher in the field.
Also, Spencer Strider at 8,600, like is sort of a stud just at a different price tag. So,
Right.
One of those three is certainly the answer. Best team stack today?
I like the Cardinals. With the ownership coming down a bit.
Yeah.
They offer value. They offer still a massive ceiling even without Goldschmidt. So, for right now at least, I would say them the way ownership looks.
I'm very interested in Toronto as well, but that is sort of a boom bust thing. It kind of depends on what tournament you're going to be in.
Yeah, I'll throw Minnesota in there too as a stack that I just really like, because like I said before, Buxton's really driving up the ownership there kind of artificially.
Royals bats against Detmers here. They are 7th in ownership. They're kind of just middle of the pack in top stack, top value.
Yeah, I am actually kind of interested here. Detmers has allowed a 242 expected ISO to righties so far this year, 221 going back to last year. Kansas City doesn't have a lot of power in their lineup, but they do have Bobby Witt. They do have Salvador Perez. They do have Hunter Dozier at 3K hitting 6th. Whit Merrifield's reasonably priced. So I typically get to a decent amount of Kansas City just because even though they're not a great offense, Merrifield is usually one of the better point per dollar second base options. Witt is always a strong shortstop option. Perez is normally one of the better catcher options. So I do kind of like that aspect of it. And then also, Reed Detmers, he's left-handed. He's, certainly not Noah Syndergaard, but he hasn't been great at holding runners this year. So, and Max Stassi typically isn't very good at throwing them out either. So it's not the same sort of situation as yesterday where everybody that gets on is going to look to run, but it is a situation where if their speed guys get on base, you could still see some steals.
Anything else, Angels or Royals?
No.
A's and Mariners. 4 unimplied total for the A's, 4.5 for the Mariners. James Caprillion and Marco Gonzalez, both like 4% owned. Probably both should be like 4% owned. Do you like either one of those guys more or less than their current ownership?
I like Gonzalez a little bit more. I like Gonzalez more than I like Caprillion because I don't think the price difference is going to matter that much. It's a better matchup for Gonzalez going up against Oakland, but he has also been really bad this year. He's somebody that kind of, for a lot of his career, he's done a good job of limiting power. He gets a lot of infield fly balls, a lot of weak contact, but this year has been struggling a bit. He's only struck out 13.7% of hitters, 1.6 home runs per 9. Overall, I just don't really think I'm going to get to either pitcher.
All righty, same. I don't have anything to say there. A's are 16th in ownership. Mariners are 11th. There's certainly some value here. Neither one of these teams are all that expensive. I also just don't see them as all that necessary. If I'm getting to anything, it's probably a little bit more Seattle, but I don't get the sense I'm going to have a lot here. This isn't really the park I like getting to.
Yeah, I mean, the park sucks. I do like Seattle as a stack. They're only getting 3% ownership, 5.5% chance of being the top scoring stack. Caprillion has been absolute garbage this year. He somehow found a way to be decent last year, but this year so far, 209 expected ISO to righties, only an 18.7% strikeout percentage there. 299 expected ISO to lefties with just shy of an 11% strikeout percentage. And the Mariners are a decent offense. They're also reasonably priced. Julio Rodriguez is the most expensive player in the lineup at 4,700. You have a cheap Jesse Winker who hasn't been very good this year, but still, like, he's only got a .042 ISO against right-handed pitching in 198 plate appearances, but a 176 expected ISO, 271 actual WOBA, 365 expected WOBA. So has, at least to some extent, probably been hitting into bad luck. Rodriguez, one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. JP Crawford's a pretty cheap shortstop. On the other side, the A's are just another good value team. They are not a good offense overall, but you have a $2,400 Chad Pinder leading off, Laureano, Bethancourt, Murphy 3 through 5. Those guys are all solid. 2K flat, Jonah Bride hitting second. I don't actually know who Jonah Bride is, so I'm looking right now. But
110 WRC plus for Steamer.
Okay.
No power.
No power and no speed. Very strange combination.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't know who the comp is for that above average hitter that can't run or hit for shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like Eric Sogard? That
doesn't help me at all, but maybe.
I don't even know if he was an above average hitter. He just kind of stuck around for a while and was really annoying from a DFS standpoint.
Do you want anything else for the A's and Mariners, or do you want to close this one out?
No, I think that's it from that game.
We've waited the entire time to do it. Pods and Diamondbacks. 3.7 run implied total for San Diego, 3.2 for Arizona. Sean Manaea, Zach Gallen. Gallen, 15% owned, which I see as basically correct at 9,300. Sean Manaea, on the other hand, 9K and 44% owned. What do we do with Manaea?
It kind of depends on what you're doing with your stacks, I think. The way I put it with Greg this morning is that I certainly I'm not going to be upset if I get over the field on Sean Manaea here, but it also just means that I'm getting to low owned stacks. It means, I'm playing the Mariners and I'm playing the Braves and I'm playing whatever other low owned stacks we've talked about. If I get more of the Angels, more of the Red Sox, more of like the Cardinals, that probably means I'm getting less Manaea, just because it's going to be difficult to combine those two things and still get lineups that I want to play in terms of ownership. But he does project as the highest scoring pitcher on the slate. It's a good matchup against Arizona. He's a good pitcher. 25.5% strikeout percentage, 3.65 xFIP this season. I like Manaea a lot. It really just kind of comes down to what stacks are you playing.
Jeremy Savage wants to fade the Manaea ownership, which makes perfect sense to me, as if that's how this works. So kudos. I assume that I have a ton of Manaea because he's 9K, and that's not correct.
Yep.
I like Gallen too. It's just not as much as I like Sean Manaea.
The issue that I run into with just the fade Manaea is, sure, 44% is a lot. Where are you looking where you think that there's like a big advantage in ownership? Sure, 44% is a lot. Spencer Strider's getting 30. Spencer Strider also has a worse matchup, and like the ownership is there. Zach Gallen on the other side of this game, 15% ownership. 1 versus 1, I'm taking the 3-to-1 discount, but Gallen also doesn't project nearly as well as Manaea does, and so I think it's pretty fair to say that the ownership is more or less where it should be on Gallen as well. It's just that's kind of
you can also just take a lower owned stack with him. Play the Blue Jays with Sean Manaea and fix your problem a bit.
Right. That's the thing for me is normally that's the way that my lineups end up going is I'm going to play more of low owned stacks because there's just more volatility in batters than there is in pitchers. Typically, I'm going to be living more around the best projected pitchers.
Absolutely. I don't think that we're getting to Padres and Diamondback bats, are we?
I don't think so. I mean, you're still going to get actually, I think, we got the lineup. It's a watered down Padres lineup right now. Tatis is still out. Machado's still out. They are pretty inexpensive. They do have a 2K flat CJ Abrams in there, who is a top hitting prospect, but it's tough to get here. I mean, Gallen is a good pitcher. Somebody in chat just said they like them. I do too. 22.6% strikeout percentage for Gallen, 3.92 xFIP. I have a hard time really prioritizing the Padres. If I did need to point to one negative for Gallen, his strikeout stuff has been much worse against lefties, and San Diego is running out a lefty-heavy lineup. They have 4 lefties in their top 5, 5 in the top 6 overall in the lineup, so that's not ideal for Gallen, but at his ownership, still a pretty solid tournament play.
Anything else you want to touch on this slate?
Nope.
Well, the deeper dive is complete. Thank you guys for getting us up to 237 likes. If you can, hit it again. Really run that number up before lock. And don't forget, Eric is up next with Greg. Stay right here on this stream. You don't got to go anywhere. Live before lock, taking you all the way up to 7 o'clock. Peace.
you shall see, Craig Ehrenberg. Some people were naughty. Don't be naughty on this show. That's all I gotta say. Oh, what's up, all my friends? How are you? Happy Tuesday. Let's get to it. It's MLB Live Before Lock, presented by OddsShopper. I'm Eric Lindquist here at Stokastic. Excited to talk through this 13-gamer here with my buddy Greg Ehrenberg at Ehrenberg DFS. We're the Live Before Lock crew. We're in sync. We know what to do with this thing. How you doing?
Good. I got a new lamp here, which I was told by Jordan it was an emergency. I needed to get a lamp right now. I ran to the store, got a lamp. So if you guys could tell, the lighting totally different. Everything looked one way, now it looks another. It's because of this emergency lamp run I made. So thank you, Jordan, for letting me know, because clearly everything's different now. Can you tell the difference?
Instead of Dude Bro Chill Like, it's Dude Bro Chill Lamp today. Yeah. That's what we're doing. That's what we got going. Dude Bro Chill Lamp season. Hit the like button for my buddy Greg. He looks so shiny and new. I can tell a little bit of a difference. I can see a little bit into your pores. I can see you have really great skin.
Yes, this is the new light, it's whatever.
Oh, it's chill. I like it. I like what you're doing here. Let's get to it, shall we? Are you ready to talk this 13-game MLB slate, which is crazy because I feel like I have a pretty consolidated pool today. I have some offenses that I have a ton of interest in, and I have some that I'm casting to the side. Like, I don't know. I don't have an analogy for it. Probably like some of you in YouTube chat who want to say live over and over and over and over and over and over and over. It's over. I'm done with it. I'm over it.
By the way, I've actually not been sure of this. Is it supposed to be live golf or is it supposed to be Roman numerals?
It's 54. It's the Roman numerals for 54 because it's 54 holes of golf that they play in their joke little scramble format, like little trash humans that they are.
So is it 54 or is it live? What do we call it?
You call it live or 54. You call it the tour that must not be named. I'm going to treat it like Voldemort. That's what I'm going to do from now on. It's the tour that must not be named.
It seems like you might have an issue with this.
I might. What is giving you that impression, Greg?
The tone of your voice, your sentence structure is a little different. It's a little more abrupt, a little more to the point. Your periods are more defined.
Well, I'm male.
I mean, do you have an issue with the live golf?
I might, just slightly.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like it's a might. It seems like you do.
I do. I really, really do have an issue with it. I have a major issue. If you're a golf fan and you think that this is good, that this is made with the intention of having it be competition, no, it's a Ponzi scheme. It's a get rich quick scheme for a lot of these players. And then on top of that, what it is it's a bunch of guys who have no form or plan or anything else. And they are basically catapulting off of what created them, the PGA Tour, the place that gave them a place to live and gratify and achieve unimaginable riches playing the game of golf. That is the PGA Tour. And now they end up being just absolute traders. You're a trader at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. That PGA Tour seems like a monopoly to me. And they just don't want people. They don't want any other tours. They don't want any competition. And they get a little bent out of shape when they get a little competition. Well, I think it's a monopoly.
Well, I'm here for competition. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take all your money. That's going to be my way, my justification, going into the DFS streets and making myself feel better about y'all being trash humans who love this live golf thing. I'm so over it.
Are you boycotting any other Saudi Arabian products?
No, that's not how this works, Greg. That's not. Oh my God, private enterprise. Okay, we're not even going to go down this road. We have an MLB slate, 52 minutes here before lock. We're going to get to it. Actually, 57 minutes. You have plenty of time to get lineups in. Let's do this. 100 million reasons to not like 54 holes of golf. I can't time out everybody, otherwise we would have no chat left. So let's just get into pitchers, shall we? Sean Manaea, he's really popular. Do you want more or less of him?
More or less of him than the field.
The field.
So, the
he's
field,
very
right.
popular.
All right. Well, I mean, if he struggles here, we'll send him over to live golf. But so 45% owned for Sean Manaea in the current build I have. I do get to more of 45% than that. So one thing I've noticed as I've built my lineups, particularly with the St. Louis Cardinals lineup that came out recently, there is a lot of value to be had. It is not difficult to spend up a pitcher, and there are not that many pitchers to spend up for. So I find it very easy to get up to guys like Nestor Cortez, Sean Manaea. And even when it comes to some of the offensive stack ownership, nothing is all that crazy popular. There's only two teams we have that are significantly negatively leveraged. Those are the Los Angeles Angels, the Boston Red Sox. So with being a 13-game slate, like I feel pretty comfortable being able to kind of stack any other team and play the pitchers I want. And I mean, I don't find any issue with the chalk on Manaea. He's just so easy to get up to. He's underpriced on DK at $9,000, over on FanDuel at $9,900, a little bit more of a significant price point. But still, I don't find Saller to be any sort of an issue today. And of the pitchers I actually feel good about today, it's kind of just Manaea, to be honest. There aren't that many guys I feel super confident in.
Yeah, I think Arizona, people know by now. I mean, yesterday I thought they were going to get after Yu Darvish in that first inning. I think he had nearly 30 pitches, got it, and escaped out with one earned there. I thought that they were going to go nuts. The one thing about Arizona, markedly worse against lefties, 23.4% K percentage. We're looking at an 89 WRC plus. I really don't have a whole lot of interest in this Arizona team. It's all Sean Manaea for me today. If you want to have some insurance on the back end of an absolute blow up for whatever reason in 150, sounds great. But I still think 50% is too low of ownership for Sean Manaea. I know that there's negative leverage that we're looking at there in the top pitchers tool. I don't care. He's the best option on the board. You should have lots of him. I'm pretty convinced of that, especially for DraftKings purposes. You brought a FanDuel. Still think that you got to get yourself to a little bit there. I was crunching lineups. I had a feeling that I was starting to cut out there. Am I okay? I had
you didn't cut out. You didn't cut out at all.
Oh, good. Okay. I didn't know if that was happening. I'm just livid. Oh, shit.
It's on your mind. It's the only thing you can think about is live golf. You know what's going to be funny is Eric's going to go play golf somewhere. He's going to have a really good round. He's going to get offered a live contract. He's going to have no choice but to accept.
I'm not. If I was good enough to get like $100 million offer,
$100 million. $100 million. Somebody's paying you $100 million.
$100 million is a lot of dollars. Flip, flabbity flop. Here we go. Kevin Gausman, Sean Manaea. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the rest of this range. Kind of crazy. Kevin Gausman has zero attention and zero top pitcher odds for FanDuel purposes. I think even for DraftKings purposes, hasn't been pitching as well of late. But I want to get there a little bit, I think, on the top end. But Nestor Cortes, really the guy I want to ask about next. He's got a 20.2% top two pitcher percentage for DraftKings, 34.5% ownership. Southpaw going up against Tampa Bay, not as advantageous as a righty, but still, I feel like the ballpark is definitely a major plus. Getting out of Yankee Stadium to Tampa Bay for Nestor Cortes, do you have as much interest in him as I do today?
It's hard to say because I don't know how much interest you have in him.
I said I just was insinuating I have interest in him today. Lots of it, like 35% of interest.
Okay, so I like him a little less than you, but not that far off. So, I mean, you're underweight to the field on him.
Yeah, I just had 35% of my last run. I can click the thumbs up and get higher. He's at 34.5% on DK.
Yeah. So, did we get an ownership update?
Yeah, 34.5%.
Let me refresh this thing.
I'm Greg. I'm hilarious.
Yeah, there we go. He was well over 40% the last I looked. So yeah, he's at 34.5%. So yeah, you're pretty much in lockstep with the field. I'm a little bit under, not that significantly. There has been a part of me that all year, as well as Cortes is pitched, I don't totally buy into it. And it's not because of the numbers. The numbers are all really, really solid, but he just doesn't have that good of stuff. And I find it unlikely that he's just going to be this guy that continues to just crush the entire league. And I'm wondering if the last couple of starts are flukes or a sign of things to come, because the last two starts combined for Nestor Cortes, he pitched 9 2/3 innings. He allowed 5 runs. He's only struck out 7 hitters. And once again, it's very Johnny Cueto-esque back in the day when Johnny Cueto was very much built on kind of trickery, changing tempos, but it's that, but with only a fraction of the stuff. So I think the league is going to find out Nestor Cortes or figure him out eventually. And this kind of feels like we're buying a peak for him. Like going forward, is he going to be more or less expensive than 10,400 on DraftKings and 10,500 on FanDuel? I have to think he's going to be less expensive going forward. So he's still one of my most rostered pitchers because the pitching options are not terrific today. But I am a little bit underweight to the field.
Okay. Just wanted to touch on that. Corey Ballmer, I can't focus on this slate. I'm effed. No, you're not. We're going to rein it in here. We're not going to talk about the tournament that must not be named. I didn't mean to put a black cloud over it. The way that Brooks kept it said was over the US Open because he was so worried about everybody else. So yeah, we're going to just focus baseball. We're going to be fine. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be cool. I'm going to be collected. Yes, I am.
No. We're going to get you riled up.
No, you're not. I'm going to be relaxed.
Get Eric riled up. Tell him what he thinks about the Live Golf Tour and why it is
Tour
the
must
place
not be
to play
named.
golf.
Tour that must not be named.
We'll talk about baseball, but I just want people in the chat to try to tell Eric why he should be pro Live Golf.
All right. Well, there's one
golfers,
pitcher.
right?
The pitcher that I can't get away from the most is Spencer Strider today against San Francisco. He's 8,600. Sean Manaea and him, I'm very chalky pitcher, but I have so many stacks that I like that are underowned, should I say? Underowned is probably the right way of putting it. I'm not so worried about it today. I feel like Spencer Strider is just a massive stud. If you're playing over at Prize Picks, use promo code Osmo. It's still promo code Osmo. Get $100 first match deposit bonus over there. But their taco, $25, up to $25. You can play in any 2-part parlay with a 5.5 strikeout on Spencer Strider instead of the 7.5 we have him projected for. I mean, this guy's an absolute stud. He's now the favorite to win the NL Rookie of the Year. He should be the favorite to win NL Rookie of the Year. He's kind of your boy. He's kind of Terry's boy in the chat as well. But Spencer Strider, how do you feel about him in this spot against San Francisco that definitely has some lefties who can get after righties?
I mean, he has the highest strikeout percentage of any pitcher on today's slate, and not by a narrow margin. He's a 38.6% K rate. The next closest is Dylan Cease. So I just don't think we've seen pricing adjust enough on either DraftKings or FanDuel. He is $8,600 on DK, $8,700 on FanDuel. Matchup against the San Francisco Giants, it isn't ideal, but look at the other high-end pitchers we have to talk about, and all of them kind of have some concerns when it comes to matchup other than Sean Manaea. The other pitchers, Nestor Cortes on the road in Tampa Bay, that's not necessarily ideal. Dylan Cease pitching against the Blue Jays, that's not really ideal. Kevin Gausman is on the road against the White Sox. The White Sox offense has been fairly abysmal against right-hand pitching this year, but still Chicago's a hitter-friendly park. They just got Tim Anderson back from the injured list. So I think that I think that Spencer Strider, just given his strikeout stuff, he should be at least $1,000 more expensive than he is right now. I think he's the most upside of any pitcher going today.
I'm with you. I think he's an absolute stud. Sean Manaea and him, I know why they're chalk, and I don't really care today. Nestor Cortes as well. All three of them just stand out so much. But we're talking about 150 lineups today. I still have shares of some guys further down the board here, and I'm just curious. I'm going to open it up to you. Anybody else in the expensive end? We're talking 8K plus for DraftKings purposes. Did you find yourself rostering today?
So what was the salary range?
8K plus.
8K plus. Yeah. So Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen is $9,500 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he is $9,300. I don't think people really understand how bad the San Diego Padres offense could potentially be in the short term, because they just lost Manny Machado. And as is, this was an offense that was kind of struggling against right-hand pitching. Keep in mind, there's no Fernando Tatis for them right now either. And, pretty brutal looking ankle injury for Machado, although it seems like he might not miss quite as much time as what it looked like when we first saw that video. But that aside, there's no Machado for now. And the Padres against right-hand pitching this year, they had a 98 WRC plus. Now you're taking Machado out of the mix, who has probably been the most valuable player in the National League to this point. And this just might be a really bad offense against right-hand pitching. Zach Gallen's had a really strong season, and I think he's going a little bit overlooked by the field because people are gravitating towards Manaea and Cortes, which I understand, but I think Gallen warrants a little more ownership than he's getting.
All righty. Well, now we've gotten to the portion of the program I'm looking forward to talking about. It is the Roansy Contreras portion of the program. It's a guy you and I both really, really like. Exciting young pitcher, 25.2% K percentage, is giving up some hard contact, 45.6%. You do have some bats in the likes of Wilson Contreras, Patrick Wisdom, Ian Happ, guys he's got to get by, but there are strikeouts available. Morel, north of 27% strikeout rate. Patrick Wisdom, nearly 35% strikeout rate. Alfonso Rivas in the lineup, 32% K percentage. What are we going to be doing with your boy? I'm going to call him your boy, Roansy Contreras, today at 7,400.
Listen, I live myself some Contreras, but here's the issue.
Damn it.
What? He's one of my favorite pitchers. I live him very much. But so when it comes to Contreras, it's a good spot for him against the Cubs. I totally believe in the talent, but I just don't think the salary savings are that necessary today. How many times have you been building a lineup on this late and been like, oh my, I need all these extra salary savings at pitcher? In fact, some of my lineups that have Spencer Strider in them are leaving like $1,000 on the table as is, because it's hard to fill out all the salary today. So I don't think it's that necessary to go cheap at pitcher. The guy I'm getting the most exposure to below 9K is Contreras, but it's still barely over 10% of them.
Interesting.
Oh, sorry, under Strider's price. So we'll say under 86.
Got it. All right. Well, that makes sense because I find myself kind of gravitating to the top of the board today. Every slate is its own puzzle to put together. And I think with a 13-game slate and some under-owned offenses, it's not that hard for me to be chalkier at pitcher. I do think the last guy to talk about on the board for me entirely is Dylan Cease, who's had some major problems from time to time in giving up hard contact and getting himself in trouble from a walks perspective. And it's a Toronto offense that can be very, very potent. Less hard contact than I thought, 33.1%. But yeah, the walks have definitely bit him, 11.5% walk rate. But there's enough strikeouts here. I do think with Bo Bichette, Teoscar Hernandez, Matt Chapman, guys of that nature, it's just a guy who's got really, really good stuff. And I feel like anytime he's going to be under-owned, that's my one pitcher that I definitely want to get some shares of, a little bit above expectation. But I'm with you. I think it's a pretty clear-cut top pitcher board for today. Anybody on the cheap end that you find yourself rostering?
Not really. And it's not that I don't think there are guys that are underpriced for on the cheap end. Like if I had to roster one, it would be Contreras going up against the Cubs. And like I said before, he is the guy that I get the most exposure to. But beyond that, and I mean, we could even just walk through some of these guys. And there, also to the point I made before, there just isn't that much need for salary savings. But beyond that, you know, like Jose Urquidy, I don't love the matchup against the Mets. Rich Hill going up against the Tigers. Good matchup, but once again, I just don't find Rich Hill necessary. Jack Flaherty's on a 75 pitch limit. So there's so many guys here. I was going to go through a lot of them. Then I realized like, oh no, this is a 13-game slate. I'm just going to be rattling off 30 names at pitcher.
Here's a guy.
Yeah.
There's a guy.
But it's just, I find the salary savings unnecessary. That's really the broader point for this slate.
Chat thinks they're so cute. Chat thinks they're so funny. Oh, I'm going to say live. I'm going to say living on a prayer. Living rent free. Live. Oh my God. You guys are the worst. Why would you do this?
They're the best. They're the best. 54, baby.
Stokastic Plus. You guys should check it out. It's really cool. We do a lot of great stuff here. Promo code MLB Live. There it is. I said it all caps, one word, MLB Live. If you want the best player projections, ownership projections, everything we have here behind the paywall, check it out. We also have top drivers tool for NASCAR. We have the top pitchers tool. Well, for baseball, obviously, we're talking that top golfers tool. That's going to come in use for the actual PGA Tour event going this actual weekend. Normal 72 holes of stroke play like a normal golf tournament should be. You can check that out, Top Golfers Tool. Utilize all the things we have using promo code MLB Live, 50% off your first month of Stokastic Plus. Stop guessing, start winning like a real professional, like Rory McIlroy, like Justin Thomas, like the leaders of the game. You too can be a leader in the game of DFS, like Osmo, Steve Bussert, the Colts, all the greats here in house at Osmo.
Promo code MLB Live. I'm going to get it changed. Promo code MLB Live, and Eric has to read it every day. I'm sending the message in Slack right now. MLB Live. Joey, help me out with this. All right, we're getting it updated. Any other pitchers you like?
No.
You sure?
I have like a share of Kyle Gibson, James Caprillion, Caprillion. See, I don't even feel enthusiastic about it anymore because I'm so upset.
Let's see. Are there any? I just went through all
Rich
the pitchers. You know what's upsetting about the pitchers today?
There's what live joke do you have?
No, that's the problem. There's no live puns to make with any of these pitchers' names. Like what do I do with Anthony Desclafani?
You just say his name and be a respectable human being in the world.
Martin Perez, can't do anything with that. Zach Allen.
Carlos Manzo, guess what? You don't have to, you can just go in timeout. How about that? I can just put you in timeout because I can do that.
I'm bringing him back. How do I bring him back? How do I undelete? Can I do that?
No. Undelay, mama, oh. No. That was my segue into St. Louis. That was my segue into St. Louis. My favorite stack to get to. You know why, Greg? Why is St. Louis my favorite stack to get to on this slate? Do you know who's pitching for the Milwaukee Brewers in the year of our Lord 2022 today?
Yeah, the rumor is Chichi Gonzalez, and I do not understand how he continues to get opportunities to pitch at the big league level. He has been miserable for really for his entire career. So he has pitched in the major leagues on and off since 2015. His career ERA is 5.69, career FIP 5.37. He's only made 2 starts this year, 7 innings. They sucked. He has a 7.71 ERA, 4.83 expected ERA. Here are his ERAs the last 5 years he's pitched in the big leagues. 7.71, 6.46, 6.86, 5.29, 8.71. What are we doing here? Why do we keep giving this guy chances? He's not good. The Cardinals are my favorite stack on the slate. I know that we are showing them with a little bit of negative leverage. By the way, Top Stacks tool free to use today, so you guys can go check that out. But I think it's just so hard to contextualize how bad Chichi Gonzalez is. And earlier in the day, Ab and I were looking at his minor league numbers, and sure, he pitched in the PCL, which is not pitcher friendly at all. It's really difficult on pitchers, but he's still sucked in the minor leagues also. So I just don't understand why it is that he's gotten opportunities at the big leagues. The last full season we saw him pitch in AAA was 2019. In AAA, he had a 6.1 ERA of 5.74 FIP. This guy simply cannot get hitters out. The Cardinals, sure, they don't have Paul Goldschmidt in the lineup. It's a right-hand dominant lineup. They're better against lefties than they are against righties. It doesn't matter. Chichi Gonzalez isn't getting anybody out.
I have so many Cardinals bats today. It's really, truly astounding. I just wanted to talk about them right out of the gate because 11.9% ownership share. That's not true. 8.6% ownership share. There's a tiny bit of negative leverage there, but I just don't care. It's Chichi Gonzalez. It's a cheap team too. Like without Paul Goldschmidt in the lineup, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
I can play Gallen. I can play Minaya. I can play Strider. I can play Nestor Cortez. I can play all these eye upside arms. And I can just stack against the worst pitcher that exists, not just on this slate, but maybe in the history of mankind.
Can I tell you a weird thing that kind of matters to me about the Cardinals? I hope Jack Flaherty pitches well. This is my only concern when it comes to the Cardinals is if the Brewers are able to score runs against Flaherty, and I have my concerns about Flaherty's fastball velocity has been way down to this point in the season. But if the Cardinals and the Brewers, if this game is kind of close in the later going, unfortunately, the Brewers bullpen is ridiculously good with guys like Devin Williams, Josh Hader, Brad Boxberger at the end. And there is a little bit of concern for me that you just get past the 5th inning and then it's just lights out pitchers coming into the game for the Brewers. So we really do need the Cardinals to jump on Chichi Gonzalez really early in this spot.
Just doing some house cleaning. Don't mind me. St. Louis, yay. Big time behind them. Other popular stacks, again, the Angels, Matt Duffy. What is it about us? Yesterday was the day that I just kind of couldn't take it anymore. Matt Duffy was batting cleanup. He's demoted to the 7 hole. Just remove him out of your pool. I'm so over this cat. It's just unbelievable. You went through it. Hadn't had double digits since like May 25th or something. It's been a month since the guy, and he was batting cleanup on a Major League Baseball team. You run into double digits by accident eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I've had no issue. Just like yesterday, for instance, we saw the Angels were massively chalky. We had, I mean, in some contests, Mike Trout was as much as 50% owned. Then you had Ohtani and Tyler Ward was like high 20% owned. You had guys like Rengifo nearly 20%. So there was massive ownership on the Angels. The easiest player to just remove from the mix was Matt Duffy. He absolutely stinks. And there's no real fantasy upside there. I mean, if I shit on him, eventually he's going to have a good game because you can't suck forever. Eventually you have to have one good game, but I think you're going to come out ahead in general if you just don't play Matt Duffy.
I think that that's the right way to do it. You know who I do want to, well, we'll get to my favorite stack of the day later here. We'll get there. But I want to talk these chalky offenses. Boston, Angels, Pittsburgh, super insanely chalky. Yesterday, you called it out. He ended up being insanely popular. This Cruz fellow could have been on a baseball team with Yordan Alvarez with the Dodgers if they had just held strong and not gone for bullpen arms. Of course, maybe they don't win the 2020 World Series. I bet they still do, more than likely, against Tampa Bay in that spot. But Yordan Alvarez and Cruz on the Dodgers, that would be pretty fun to see. Regardless, they're chalky. Out of these very chalky offenses on DraftKings, who are your favorite to roster?
So who are we grouping in here? The Angels, the Boston, Red Sox, and the Pirates?
Yep.
To be honest, these are 3 of the only offenses I don't like because I mean, I just don't have that much desire to play a Pittsburgh Pirates offense that's going to be super popular. Now, with that said, you could differentiate a little bit by if you stack the Pirates and you don't include Oneil Cruz in that lineup, I think that there's going to be very few people that do that kind of build. But with that said, Oneil Cruz is my most rostered individual hitter. It was the same case yesterday. He was my most rostered player. I love getting to Oneil Cruz. It's going to be the same today until the price comes up. But overall, the Pirates as a stack, I know that Matt Schwarmer isn't a good pitcher. He has an expected ERA north of 5. The Pirates have a pretty high implied run total for today. They scored a bunch of runs yesterday, which is going to make some people want to roster them again. But outside of Oneil Cruz, there isn't any one individual Pirates hitter that I want to get to a ton. And also, like you said, they're the third most popular offense today on DraftKings. And then there's only 2 teams that are really picking up significant negative leverage today. That is the Angels, same as yesterday. Being off them certainly worked out. And the Boston Red Sox against Bo Brisky. Because those 3 offenses, well, the 2 in particular, the Red Sox and the Angels, are so negatively leveraged, nearly every other team is either neutral or positively leveraged.
I think Pittsburgh, especially on like a FanDuel, would be a little bit of a mistake today. 4.8% top stack percentage. You don't really need the savings to play any pitcher that you want over there. I don't know why they're pulling 11.4% ownership share over there. That's second highest on this slate. FanDuel especially, I'm vehemently against getting to Pittsburgh. I will say that. DK, I get it a little bit more, but still don't want to be at the field on them. The Angels, you know who you want to get to from the Angels, and it's pretty easy to have a 2 and 3 man game on DK where I can get rid of the rest of that garbage, that filth that I don't need at the back end of that lineup. Man, I'm being very mean today. Wow. I'll tone it down.
Are you being
mean?
I
won't.
What are you doing that's mean?
Oh no, I was just pretty aggressive. Like, I don't mean to besmirch the good name of Matt Duffy, but he's not good at baseball, so don't roster him.
I think you're a little out of sorts for some reason. I can't quite figure out what it is that has you out, but there's something that has you rattled or something.
All right. Well, Minnesota, I'm still going to get to some Minnesota because I think that they're going to be they're just they're really chalky over on FanDuel, a little less so, 6.8% ownership share. I don't think people understand how good Alex Kirilloff has been back at AAA. Every single time I get a home run alert from the AAA team on Twitter, they basically always have something attached to the tweet being like, why is Alex Kirilloff even here? And it's pretty true. I mean, the guy is an absolute monster, massive raw power guy, according to FanGraphs, pretty much everything you could possibly want here. He's just been ripping up AAA St. Paul. Just go right back to him. He has a 1.415 OPS over the course of the last month at AAA. You know how dumb that is? That's dumb.
So something else. I mean, he hasn't hit at all at the big league level, and
don't care.
Yeah, there's a little bit of concern for me for pinch hitting, but other than that, I'm with you. I think he's a really good one-off. It's a good spot for the Twins against Aaron Savali. Savali's been fairly miserable this year. I'll bring up Savali's numbers as I'm talking through it, because off the top of my head, really low strikeout guy and really, really low ground ball rate. So if you're targeting a pitcher for DFS purposes, here's something you like to see. 32% ground ball rate and just above league average when it comes to home run to fly ball rate, which all leads to Savali, 7.84 ERA, 5.06 expected ERA. He's been pretty miserable. He's not quite Chichi Gonzalez bad, but he's just a slight tier beyond that. So behind that. So I think that this is a pretty good spot to get to the Minnesota Twins. And at least this morning, there was a bunch of Twins hitters that were rating out pretty well as home run bets over on Odd Shopper. I know one of them was Byron Buxton at plus 390 to homer. I'll see if those odds still exist. But yeah, Savali's a good pitcher to pick on. Yes, he is. Alex Kirilloff. That's my favorite bat to get to. Yeah, including Byron Buxton. I mean, he's the only guy pulling any ownership on DK, 17.5%. Everybody else really low owned compared to what I was expecting against Savali in this spot. But yeah, I definitely want to get to all the Kirilloff, all the Kepler. I'm getting to a lot of, Gio Urshela even batting 6th today. It's just a team I think is going slept on outside of Buxton. He's the only guy pulling up that ownership. I'm not saying make stacks without Buxton. He's my favorite baseball player in the history of humanity, but I'm pretty sure that there are still some serviceable ways to put that stack together without him. So there you go. That'll be kind of the low owned way of looking at it. Minnesota without Buxton, that'll trim some ownership if you're worried about that, but doesn't seem like they're all that popular when you look at the individual hitters. Let's keep going, my friend. Who are some of the more positively leveraged teams? Because again, you said some of these teams, you and I kind of do it the same way. We try to get
try to get away from the major chalk that exists on certain slates. Chichi Gonzalez is a little bit of an outlier. I think Minnesota can be pieced together, but who are your favorite stacks that are positively leveraged to get to on today's slate?
Yeah. So for starters, the only two teams that I'm really concerned about ownership on are the Boston Red Sox and Los Angeles Angels. Beyond that, I don't really have that many concerns. Well, I guess the Pittsburgh Pirates as well, but I just don't think it's that necessary to go cheap at offense today because we talked about the state of pitcher. And while there are pay up options that we like to get to, it's not like we're paying $12,000 for any one individual pitcher. And I mean, we're not even paying close to that. And this goes back to a conversation you and I had yesterday about how different lineups look in general when we're building them on DraftKings and FanDuel as of late, because we don't have those pitchers that are crazy expensive we've seen in the past. There's been a change to the pricing algorithm. So I don't find that much of a need to go cheap with any of my offenses unless I think it's a really, really good spot for them. And that just isn't the case with many of the cheap offenses today.
I'll just get to it. My favorite game to target on the entire board today is the Seattle Mariners at the Oakland Athletics today. Has anybody looked at the temperature there in the Bay for today? Does anybody know how damn hot it is in California today? Because I'll tell you if you don't know, it is 90 degrees in Oakland at first pitch. You know how many times that's ever happened in Oakland? I'm going to say damn near about 0 for a 7 o'clock start time for a baseball game. It is hot. The ball's going to be flying above expectation. And the best part is you get Marco Gonzalez on one side with his 502 expected slugging, 280 expected batting average. And you get James Caprillion on the other, 539 expected slugging. Ground ball rate be damned. The guy has a 16.3 degree average launch angle now. The once touted prospect coming out of the Yankees organization ends up in Oakland, and he has not been successful. I don't know what I'm missing. I feel like 8.5 is just a really low total for this game. In this game environment, I know that the wind's suppressed going out there in Oakland, the way that they built the stadium, it's blowing out to right field. I don't think that's much of the concern, but how many times do we ever see this ballpark playing this short in 90-degree weather? I'll say damn near never. Give me both offenses. How do you feel about that game specifically?
I like Seattle. Oakland, I find to be a little bit unnecessary just because once again, it's a salary thing. I just don't feel the need to save that much salary. The matchup against Marco Gonzalez, it's a positive one. Marco Gonzalez has not been good this year. He was terrible last year as well. But one thing about Seattle is actually we have pretty significant top stack odds on Seattle. They are 6th overall for today's slate.
That was the stack I was getting at when I alluded to it earlier. My favorite stack to get to on today's slate. Julio Rodriguez, he has a 0.5 runs plus RBIs on Prize Picks today. That's my favorite play that I've seen in a very long time.
I obviously don't look at Prize Picks as much as you do, but I would say that seems pretty low for Julio Rodriguez, especially when you consider the matchup against James Caprillion. And then, I mean, you get Julio Rodriguez on base once, pretty good chance he's stealing second base. He's going to score on a single. Caprillion this year, he's letting guys on base. 6.31 ERA, 5.71 expected ERA, allowing a lot of contact. Also, when we were talking about Aaron Savali before and his just overall contact type numbers, 36.8% ground ball rate for James Caprillion. So also a lot of balls in the air, 16.1% home run to fly ball rate. And it's a lot of contact because he's only striking out 14.7% of the hitters he's facing. So I do view the Mariners as a good contrarian team. Oakland, I do think it's a good spot just for this particular slate. I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I would get to more Oakland on a different kind of slate. I'm playing a lot of St. Louis. I think Minnesota's pretty easy to piece together, even without Buxton in some spots. If I'm going to play chalkier pitchers, if I want to get to some Dylan Cease, I can involve Buxton quite a bit here. Just put them in a group of Fantasy Cruncher as I speak. There we are. Done. Now I did that. It's pretty simple. Get that add-on. Easiest thing you can do for your MLB DFS game. But we continue on. Greg, other stacks that you want to be getting to on today's slate that are carrying positive leverage?
So one other one that I think is interesting is the Atlanta Braves, who are pretty expensive, but like we talked about before, salary is not too much of a concern for this slate. And even if you want to go stack up 5 Braves, you could plug in Oneil Cruz into that lineup. You could roster some other cheaper players, and that'll make it fairly easy to make the 5-man Brave stacks work with some of the more expensive pitching we like for tonight. But here's the main thing. Anthony Descafani is a good pitcher. He's somebody that I like. But at the same time, too, he's coming off the injured list. We haven't seen him pitch in a while. And like we've seen with some of these guys coming off the injured list, you just don't know what you're getting out of them. Lance Lynn, he sucked again last night. We've seen Jack Flaherty, his velocity was way down in his first start. And let's see what we're getting out of Anthony DeSclafani. So far this year, he's only made 3 starts. His velocity was down. Maybe that's why he landed on the injured list. But so far from Anthony DeSclafani in just the 13 innings we've seen him pitch, 92.9 average fastball velocity, by far the lowest of his career. He was at 94.2 last year, 95.1 the year before. So there's some possibility here that we kind of have to throw all of the numbers that we have in the past out when it comes to Anthony DeSclafani, because we just don't know who he is as a pitcher right now. And if he's really been hampered and injured to the point where he's not the same guy he was at one point, this could be a positive matchup for the Braves that's being slept on. So I think it's a team that makes a lot of sense to get to. And it's a pay-up offense, which is kind of nice because it puts you on a just totally different build from what most other people are doing.
I agree. I think that there's going to be some ways where, and that's where I think Roansy Contreras has more utility today still in those kind of builds. I do think he ends up a little bit more popular just from what I'm seeing around other places and bouncing around. But he's not all that necessary. Just, in terms of a high upside arm to combine with some of the more expensive stacks, I don't completely hate getting to him. But yeah, I'm still going to be going to some of the cheaper offenses in Minnesota and in St. Louis and some of these spots. So I like the Atlanta shout out. I'll give them a little thumbs up here as we go. But everybody knows Seattle, Oakland, those are kind of my 2 major targets where I just really, really like that game environment compared to what you normally get there. And I just think it's being slept on. 8.5 is a pretty big total for Oakland, you would expect. And that part of it is the pitchers being bad, and part of it is just a better game environment than normal. Do you have any interest in Toronto today? That's another team that yesterday we were very, very high on. And Dylan Cease, I brought it up. He's had a couple issues here, especially in the old walk department. Is that a team you find, Landy, considering they have the 4th highest top stack odds on DK for today?
It's hard for me to really feel great about stacking against Dylan Cease. And yeah, he's had some command issues as of late, but still overall for the season, he's a 2.91 ERA, a 2.82 expected ERA. And then the other thing too is, let's try to look at some of his home run numbers and say like, okay, is there that much upside if he pitches poorly? And I still kind of think that's a no. He's made 13 starts this year, pitched 68 innings. He's allowed a total of 5 homers. He hasn't allowed a homer since May 24th. So this isn't a guy who really gets blown up all that frequently. And when he does, it's more walks and getting singled to death. So it's not like there's that high ceiling against him. Like when Lucas Giolito on the White Sox has a bad outing, you just know he's giving up, multiple homers because that's the kind of way that he pitches poorly. For Cease, it's just command issues, and that doesn't really benefit opposing offenses all that much. So you and I both like Toronto yesterday. They went off. It was in a spot against Lance Lynn, at least on paper, a lot of people would think he's a good pitcher, but I can't back it in the same way against Dylan Cease today.
All right. That's fair. Any other offenses that you absolutely need to shout out here before we talk a little odd shopper?
Let's see. Any other offenses? I mean, it's a 13-game slate. There's a lot of teams that warrant 3-4% exposure, but we've already hit on the ones that are most important to me, and I don't just want to mention every single offense here. So the ones that are most important to me, we've already covered.
Yeah, and those are kind of my major offenses today. I have a tighter player pool than I normally would on this kind of a slate. I will say I've kind of rotated around the same bats in quite a few places, getting more bat exposure to the back end of the St. Louis and Minnesota lineup, combining those with some of these stacks, even Houston, going up against Trevor Williams. I always think Houston, when there's positive leverage, bears some conversation. Reed Detmers hasn't been really all that good aside from that one no-hitter he threw this season. Kansas City, bunch of righties you can get to, but they're going a little bit over-owned, so it makes it a little less appealing. Just some spots where you can make a case for a lot of different offenses. I'm just preferring to keep it right, keep it tight today.
Keep it right, keep it tight.
Keep it right. Keep it right. Keep it tight. Odd Shopper, oddshopper.com. That's where Greg and I are heading. You should head there to sign up with an email right now. Head to Odd Shopper and be able to see the best data, tools, and content that we possibly have for free. Yes, free 99 is the best 99. Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. We've got Steve DeColt's Buzzard. He's pretty good at DFS. We got Sean's on, who wins 100K, it seems like, every week. So that's cool. Must be nice. Good job by him. I'm just saying. He's giving you free stuff. you probably want to be hitting subscribe to it. So sign up over at OddsShopper. Take advantage of some of these player props here today. I said, I'm playing Prize Picks. That's kind of the way that I do things here in California. I don't have any other choice. It's California love. So I just play the over 5.5 on Spencer Strider. Life is better. Yes, low Strider. Somebody asked for that earlier. I don't know why, but I gave it to him. How are you feeling today on OddsShopper? Is there anything that stands out to you that is a can't miss prop on today's slate? Anything from your betting VOD that you do every single day?
Does anything? Who's favored to win the Live Golf Tournament this week?
EMAC, I swear to God, EMAC with the expert troll. EMAC, I thought we were friends. I thought this was Team Eric. You are just.
You can't time him out. He's got the wrench. Keep it coming, EMAC. There's nothing he can do. He's got no defense. Good point by Uno14. This is a great live before lock. Should we rename the program?
Why are there so many puns for this damn word for the tour that must not be named?
Eric has to drink just to get through live references now.
I do. Y'all pushed me to the bottle.
Yeah, there's going to be bottle. Eric is going to be at an AA meeting, and everybody's going to be telling these stories about, oh, I was drunk driving, I ran over a baby, I blew somebody for a beer, and then Eric's going to be like, oh, there's this new golf tour that started.
Hey, everybody, it's all about perspective, and I don't know. I feel like I can't even go there. Can you just give me a damn bet and just shut up? That'd be great.
Yeah, let me see what the new odds are now, because
thanks.
So I record early in the day, and then often the odds are different. But one thing that does stand out that hasn't changed, so there's a lot of players from the Washington Nationals that have really favorable home run props. And something that happened this morning is we just didn't know who was going to be the starting pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles. We didn't know if it was going to be a bullpen game. We didn't know if it was going to be Jordan Lyles. Obviously, now we know that it's Jordan Lyles. But once Lyles got named the starter, I just don't think there was enough of an odds move on a lot of these guys, because Jordan Lyles is another one of these pitchers who it's really favorable home run matchups for opposing offenses. Jordan Lyles throughout his career has been a guy that allows a lot of hard contact, doesn't really generate strikeouts, high home run to fly ball rate. So far this year, 12.5% home run to fly ball rate, 43% ground ball rate. And then also just look at the strikeout numbers from 19.2%. So, not that much different from what we've seen from Jordan Lyles over the course of his career. If you look at the home run numbers in his starts this year, he's allowed 10 homers already this year. His last couple of starts, he allowed 1 homer against Toronto. He allowed 2 home runs to the Kansas City Royals. So there's a lot of home runs to be found against Jordan Lyles. And we've got guys like Juan Soto is plus 600 to homer, Nelson Cruz plus 500 to homer, Michael Franco plus 900 to homer, Yadiel Hernandez plus 950. All of these are really favorable looking bets. And I wish I would have done this the other day with the Houston Astros, where there was this slate where you and I were going through some of the top bets for the Lucas Giolito start the other day. And I had Kyle Tucker as my home run pick at plus 600, plus 610. I forget exactly what the number was. He homered. And ultimately, I came away thinking, I really wish I would have bet more of those Houston bats that rated out favorably. And today, I kind of want to bet the board with these Nationals players and take, 4 or 5 of them that have 30+% ROI. And then you just need one of them to homer, and it's going to be a plus EV night. And I think that's a pretty good thing to go about to approach the Nationals against Lyles today.
That is the nicest thing you've said all day. That was lovely. Well done. I'm with you.
What was your least favorite thing I've said all day?
Live and let live was not very good.
I didn't say that.
Or I heard that.
I might have. I don't know.
I read it in chat. Live and let live. Live and let die. Living on a prayer. Live before lock.
Oh, I like that one. That was a good one.
Lindquist. That was not good. I saw Eric Lindquist.
I like that one too.
Whatever. Let's just go position by position. Let's round this out.
Oh, we don't want to do more bets?
Oh, we can talk more bets. I like bets very much. Again, over 0.5 runs plus RBIs for Julio Rodriguez. The runs alone was minus 125 on DK earlier today. You get the RBIs along free for the ride. He's batting third, which I think having a little bit of protection at the top of the lineup helps the RBI expectation rather than him leading off and having Cal Raleigh being the guy behind him. Sounds great, but not really. So batting third, not going to be the best spot. But they did say JP Crawford was going to start leading off. I'm glad that they did it. I mean, I'm here for that. I think it adds a different kind of look to this team. And they said they were going to do it on Saturday. They ended up having Julio bat lead off both times. But he's going to be just a phenomenal hitter long-term, that whole entire Seattle situation. Happy to get to them. I don't know if they're good enough in terms of total home runs. You have Rodriguez, Suarez, Winker as the 1, 2, 3. I don't think I really want to be going to that. I just basically use Vegas odds to indicate whether or not everything matches up as a good bet. I would much rather go to the Verdugo, Story, Devers, Martinez. You get the 4 power guys that you would want from Boston all together. Birds of a feather now. I would be much more inclined to use that as my total home runs call for prize picks today, especially now that St. Louis no Goldschmidt in the lineup. They took it off the board.
What is the strikeout prop for Kevin Gausman over on prize picks?
I'll find it here.
So while you're looking that up, earlier in the day, and this is also why, if you guys bet 5, okay, I don't mind the over on that, but if you guys bet player props, here's why you should look at OddsShopper and just look at some of these numbers early in the day. So Kevin Gausman, one of my favorite bets that was available only this morning, over on FanDuel, the over 4.5 strikeouts for Gausman was minus 135. It's now gone up to 5.5, and some places have it at 4.5, but it's like minus 167. But some of the best odds, just in terms of numbers that are way off, are going to be numbers that get posted early and then get steamed because they just take on a lot of money and books have no choice but to move them. But the fact that we were able to get Kevin Gausman this morning at over 4.5 strikeouts at minus 135, and now he's 5.5 or 4.5 minus 167. Just check out some of these numbers early if you bet player props.
I love that shout out. That is low. Well, I like 5. I think 5's all right, but couple of better spots that we can get to specifically. Take advantage of that taco. It's Taco Tuesday. You definitely want to be doing that. Spencer Strider over 5.5 strikeouts. Please. Thank you very much. I'll also add one more for prize picks purposes. And I'm curious what you think about this one. Joe Ryan under 30.5 for a pitcher fantasy score. I feel like Joe Ryan is going to be one of the best young pitchers, if not the best pitcher that the Minnesota Twins have in their starting rotation going forward. But I don't understand why 30.5 is the number, considering 1, there's pitch count concerns. 2, massive strikeout concerns. You get Kwan leading off for the Cleveland Guardians here in this spot. 7% strikeout rate on the season. Not ideal having him go from 7th or 8th in the lineup to 1st and leading off here for Joe Ryan's fantasy profile. I like the under 30.5. How about you?
Let's see. So pitch count for Joe Ryan in his last start. Have we gotten any reports on a definitive pitch count for him?
No. If I did, I would actually have a little bit of exposure, but even still, he's 8,800. Cleveland strikes out at the least amount of any team in baseball against right-handed pitching, south of an 18% strikeout rate with this current lineup. And now it actually goes down a little bit. I'm going to have to update it because I had Quan in the 7-hole earlier when I was going through that. He is leading off today, which is a massive difference.
Yeah. So when it comes to Joe Ryan, also I have no exposure to him at all in DFS. Do you?
None.
Yeah. So it's hard to pay up for somebody when I think they could potentially be pretty restricted in terms of pitch count. 74 pitches his last time out, is his first start in how long? About a month. He went, it was 4 weeks between starts for Joe Ryan through 74 pitches. Didn't look quite as good as he did before he came back. Before I go back to rostering Joe Ryan, I want a couple of things to happen. Number one, I either want his pitch count to get back up to normal, or I want to see him actually have some success on the mound. I can't play him as is, but to the point you mentioned before, under certainly makes sense.
Jonathan India is back in the game. He had a home run alert. He's been out forever.
Yeah, I mean, when there are games that are not on the main slate, I pay them zero attention because my brother buys and sells a lot of baseball cards and asks me, "Oh, how did this guy do today?" And if it's not on the main slate, I just assume the team didn't play. So Reds, Jonathan India being back, totally not on my radar.
Yeah, he's not on my dynasty team, so I really don't care. I didn't pay any attention setting my lineup today. It was nonsensical, but I normally would notice something like that just for the heck of it. But yeah, Jonathan India, congratulations. First homer on the season. Feel like I haven't seen that name in a hot second. That's a decent enough hitter to get back in the Cincinnati lineup. I don't know what his outlook is on Steamer going forward, but a guy last year that obviously was pretty fantasy viable from time to time, had that triple dong game that stands out of the middle of nowhere. That was unfortunate, but still, we continue on. Let's go position by position to round it out.
Did that game, was that a bad game for you or something? Because you seem to remember that very clearly.
I was smashing. There was some stack that was going off early, and then he just goes homer, homer, homer. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Jonathan India. I mean, Great American Ballpark. It definitely, from what I remember, I was thinking I was going to win all the money, and then I had like 0 Jonathan India, and you needed him. So that was unfortunate.
So here's actually, now that you're talking about it, here's why that I like that game. This is why. So that was the night I bet Jonathan India to win the National League Rookie of the Year last year, because there was Trevor Rogers was a prohibitive betting favorite at the point. At that point, he was like minus 200 or minus 250. So India actually had long odds, and I bet him that night, and then his odds went down a little bit. So that was a good night. You're wrong. Good night for Jonathan.
Nobody
India.
runs better than Greg. Jesus Christ. Absolutely.
No, because I did something after the fact.
Oh,
live a little. Come on.
Catcher, go.
Let me pull up my lineups here.
So say pitcher for the people who want to recap here before we jump along. Hit the like button too while Greg pulls up his lineups. That would be so kind of you all to do that. I've had to suffer through this show with all of your trolling, with all of your ridiculous live comments. Live this, live that, live hit with a baseball bat, whatever. I don't care. And I have to see Jordan Klein's blasphemous hat over there.
Yeah. Exercise your First Amendment right to upset Eric Lindquist.
It's not how the First Amendment works.
Yeah.
Talk about catchers.
Upset people on the internet. Upset Eric on YouTube. Eric Lindquist. Sal Perez for me, by the way.
It's great. I'm happy for you. Christian Vasquez, Gary Sanchez going to first base. Juan Yepez was never the Yepez dispenser. Alex Kirilloff, first base and outfield eligibility. Yeah, I love that. I already said I did. So there you go. Who did you getting to it first? Oh, and Ty France. Don't want to forget about him.
Just a broken price on Juan Yepez in about as favorable matchup as you could possibly get against Chichi Gonzalez. So Juan Yepez for me.
Absolutely. Could not love it more in a million years. Let's head on over to second base for your boy over here. Trevor Story, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan. That shouldn't surprise anybody. How about you?
Brendan Donovan, it's going to be very, very Cardinals heavy for me, but Donovan is my answer here. And then we get to third base. You might not be shocked by my answer. You want to guess it?
Nolan Arenado.
It is Nolan Arenado.
There you go. Good man. Brendan Donovan, Nolan Arenado, Rafael Devers, and Jose Ramirez. Don't go sleeping on Jose Ramirez against Joe Ryan. One of my favorite one-offs to get to. If you have 8 minutes left, I would get to some Jose Ramirez in your life. If you have money to spend up for a one-off, the guy is just #good. What stands out for you at third base?
Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan. Those are my two most rostered guys. If you are looking to get a little bit different at third base, Ke'Bryan Hayes is somebody that stands out to me. So there's a point in time where Ke'Bryan Hayes was the best prospect in the Pirates organization. It's hard to remember a time before Oneil Cruz. I know everything is Oneil Cruz these days, but Ke'Bryan Hayes still has a lot of talent. He just has to stay healthy and stay on the field. I do think the offense is a little bit better looking now that they have Oneil Cruz in the middle of it, but that's more of my contrarian option, but still it's Nolan Arenado, Brendan Donovan.
All right. We head to shortstop. Shouldn't be surprising to anybody else here for me. JP Crawford, Tommy Edman, Xander Bogaerts, Carlos Correa. Those are my 4. How about you?
Oh, not Oneil Cruz?
He's 5th.
Okay. Oneil Cruz 1 for me. One of the only positions where the answer is not going to be a St. Louis Cardinal, but then it's Tommy Edman.
Yeah. So there you go. 2nd. Boo-hoo. Lastly, we've got Juan Yepez, of course, first base outfield eligibility. Him and Kirilloff, that's so crazy. They're just sitting there at the top for me. Harrison Bader, Byron Buxton, that shouldn't surprise anybody, but you got to be specific about how you go about living your life with him in your lineups. Franchi Cordero, he's just been treating me well. Alex Verdugo, all the Red Sox as well, along with St. Louis, along with Minnesota, mixing and matching, making it all work. Round us out, my friend. Outfield, go.
Juan Yepez, Harrison Bader, two guys I get a lot of exposure to. Oneil Cruz, he has outfield eligibility, so he makes sense. And then pay-up options, because I'm stacked the Cardinals a lot. They're pretty cheap. The pay-up options that we like at pitcher today, even somebody like a Sean Manaea is not crazy expensive. So not that hard to get up to guys like Byron Buxton, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna, Mike Trout today. So a lot of them plugged into my lineups at different points.
All right, we've reached our 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock if you live in a normal time zone on the East Coast. We've reached that portion of the program. Greg, any final words for the people as we head out here for a full day of MLB DFS?
Just live 54, be happy, troll Eric.
Thanks to Jordan Klein for producing today. Thanks to Greg for always bringing the heat. I have 54 reasons to hate every single one of you, but don't do that. I love you. Hit the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. I'm going to go live my life. We'll see you guys later.